What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Talkin Sports with Jake. Hope we're all doing well. I have a guest today. We're on Zoom today. This is Nick Alfidi. He is back. We had him on with Andy and Ashton and Justin last week. Nick, how's it going?
Good. How are you? Excited to be here.
Good. So I can see Nick's got his Bills hat on. I think he's got the Bills the sheets
Yeah, it's
in the
the logo in the
background.
background too. Yeah.
So and we are talking football. We're gonna give our reactions to each of the games from week one on today, and then we'll probably give our predictions for Thursday Night Football to close out. I figure we'll do that since the game is tonight. And telling you we're seeing it, so it'll probably be a couple hours before the game. So let's get started. Let's talk about Thursday Night Football from last week. It was Chiefs Ravens. Chiefs pulled out 27-20. Lamar, of course, threw a touchdown to Isaiah Likely. We thought at the end of the game, but his foot was just out of bounds. And they returned the call, and Chiefs hang on and win 27-20. So Nick, I'll start with you. What were your thoughts on that game?
Well, I think it kind of played out the way we kind of it does. I think the funny thing is when you get like an AFC championship or a playoff rematch in the opener. I mean, when we talk about the Lions and Rams game, I think we're going to have a similar conversation. I think both of those games played out pretty identical to their playoff matchups, where they're both very tightly contested games. However, I feel like the Ravens definitely had to come back. They were kind of behind the eight ball the entire game, but then they still have a chance to win late in that game. And there's a lot of discourse whether whether that last drive's on Lamar or not. I personally think, maybe there's one or two throws he could have made at the end of that drive that he might want back. But ultimately, I mean, you're like a toenail from Isaiah Likely away from tying
Yep.
that game. And Harbaugh was going for two, which I think is the right idea. I mean, you don't want to give the ball back to Mahomes in overtime. So, I mean, they're half a foot maybe away from winning that game. So, I think overall, from the Chiefs' perspective, from side of things, I really am interested to see. I mean, there's a lot of talk about Xavier Worthy and how good of a game he had. I think this Chiefs offense is somehow even more dynamic, definitely a lot faster. Um, Again, they had success running the ball, which is always really scary for a Chiefs offense if they can kind of do both. Um, Defensively, I think the Chiefs look great. For me, the one thing for the Ravens I have to look out for, and I think might hurt them the entire season, is Lamar was running for his life most of the game, and that's a really young offensive line and an unproven offensive line. So for me, I think if you're a Ravens fan, the one thing you're looking for is better offensive line play. And I think if that gets shored up, I think this Ravens team will be just fine.
Yeah, that's a really good point about the offensive line. I mean, they lost a bunch of guys from last year. Morgan Moses, who was the right tackle last year, isn't there. Left guard John Simpson isn't there anymore. They're actually both on the Jets now. So yeah, they have a younger line. They have a second round rookie, Roger Rosegarden or something like that is his name at the right tackle position. And so you
Mhm.
have some new faces on that line. It's a shame because that line did a really good job last year keeping Lamar healthy, helping him win a second MVP, helping him get to the
Mhm.
AFC Championship. But but for the second time since they drafted, the first time since they drafted Lamar Jackson, actually. So that's a
Mhm.
shame. I mean, they had like five legal formation penalties. Three were on
Oh
Ronnie
my gosh.
Stanley.
Yeah.
But on one hand, yes, they probably missed one or two on the Chiefs. On the other hand, Ronnie Stanley, can you please take a step forward, please? At some point, it's the NFL. You got to realize, all right, you got to take a step forward. Like you said, Lamar ran the ball 16 times. Look, Lamar is an incredible runner from the quarterback position. Very few quarterbacks ever are as good as him. Outside of Michael Vick and maybe Cam Newton, there aren't that many that currently compare to him. But at the
Mhm.
same time, if he's running the ball 16 times every game, he's not. He's got at some point he's taking so many more hits. He's either going to get hurt or until the playoffs come around, he's just going to be so just out of gas that they're going to get upset in the first or the second round of the playoffs. And now people are going to say, "Oh, Lamar can't win the playoffs, can't win the playoffs," which to this point he has not been able to. But from what it seems like he has the ability to. I mean, both times he's played the Chiefs last year in the playoffs and this year, I haven't loved the game plans they had. Last year, the game they had was just terrible. They tried to make him a pocket pass just randomly for a game, and this time just too many penalties. Also, with 10 seconds left, he misses eight Flowers. That's going to haunt him. He's probably still thinking about that. That guy's wide open. But again, obviously he was being that the pocket kind of collapsed and he was kind of scrambling around, and he was even scrambling around on the throw to I say likely as well that
Hmm.
he delivered a beautiful ball, just likely just wasn't able to get his feet down for it. It was in the kind of in
Hmm.
the end zone there. Last play of the game. But, you got to hit safe Flowers, and he was wide open. The penalties were definitely a problem. When you're playing the Chiefs, you're taking 5 legal formation penalties. And also I don't get why they were using Mark Andrews like a left tackle. Like that doesn't make any
Oh
sense.
my
But I
God.
feel like he had himself a game. The guy had 111 yards. He had a really good game, but Andrews has been your best receiver for 5 years. Probably still is. You're playing the Chiefs. Maybe he should have more than 2 catches. I mean, kudos to the Chiefs defense for I guess doing a good job on him. I mean, I'm sure they made that one their priority to not let him go crazy. I mean, that's something you get. That's something that every defense should do when you play the Ravens because of how much he's targeted. At the same time, like you didn't even get that many targets. Like, at some point, you got to find ways to get him open. Part of it's on Andrews, but part of that is on Lamar Jackson. Part of it's on Tom Monken. Part of it's on John Harbaugh. It's on all of them. So your best receiver having 2 catches, five legal formation penalty. That's not going to do it when you're playing the Kansas City Chiefs. On the Chiefs side, yeah, they ran the ball very well. Receiver looked really good. I wasn't sure what we were getting. We know the speed. He ran a 4.240. It's the speed's obviously there. You cannot teach speed. You can work on having better hands and route running. You cannot teach speed. You either have it or you don't. He obviously has it. And the whole issue was, his hands. He had some issues at Texas, but he looked really good last night. And the Chiefs love those smaller, faster slot receivers. They have a bunch of them. Hollywood Brown's coming off an injury. You have Rasheed Rice there, who also looked really good.
Hmm.
So yeah, their offense looked very good. The line looked pretty good. So overall, the Chiefs look as dangerous as ever. And the Ravens, I mean, the Ravens, they to me, they just got to clean up the penalties, and they got to get Mark Andrews more involved.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that. I think these two teams to kind of close this off. I think these teams are incredibly still tight. It wouldn't surprise me at all if this is the AFC Championship and you're looking at the two best teams in
But
the AFC at least. But yeah, the Ravens definitely need to clean up some things. But I mean, you see that kind of throughout the league. Week one's always kind of a feel out week, I feel like. So it'll be interesting to see where we end up in week 17 with these teams.
absolutely, it's very easy to overreact in week one. That's why they call it, like the next day, overreaction Monday, because it's
Yeah.
very easy to overreact. You got teams who go out there, they're horrible in week one. People are saying what's going on with them, and then you fast forward 2 months, and they're one of the best teams in the league. And then vice versa, you have teams that go out there and look great, and they go, oh, this team's going to be contender. And then you fast forward 2 months, and they're out of the race. So
Mhm.
you never know what can happen. It's week one. You know, things are going to change. But yeah, that was our recap of the Chiefs Ravens. Now let's talk about the Brazil game. Eagles Packers. Eagles win 34-29. Unfortunately, Jordan Love got hurt in the game. There was a lot of players complaining about the field. From some photos I saw, it didn't look too great. There was complaints about the game before the game because of the stuff that was going on in Brazil. Like people, they couldn't wear green because, like, for whatever reason, I don't know Brazilian culture very well. So, like, well, what are your take on that whole game and what transpired in Brazil?
I think from just a commercial standpoint first, let's talk about that before we talk about the actual game. Um, I mean, I always think it's a great idea for the NFL to get its international fans more involved and reach a wider audience. I mean, let's be real. I do think that football, American football, is still very much a domestic sport. So if you can have any opportunity to grow the game, it's the same thing. The reason why, as much as not to go too off course, why the NFL is marketing Taylor Swift as much as they can. I get like, that there's very much an overlap between domestic fans and Taylor Swift fans, but they're just basically trying to reach a new audience. And I think international games like the London games, the Germany game that's in Munich this year, and then the Brazil game, Sao Paulo this week, I think definitely encourages growth in fans internationally. So I think in practice it's a really good idea. But like you mentioned, Jake, the field was not ideal. I mean, that does make sense considering this is a soccer stadium
Yeah.
first and foremost. And so the pitch, I guess, or the field today, isn't made for the football cleats that a lot of these players obviously were wearing. And so that's why you get a lot of the slippage. It reminded me of a lot of what happened in Super Bowl. What was it? Not this Super Bowl, the last. I don't remember the actual. name of the Super Bowl, but the Eagles Chiefs Super Bowl a couple years ago, where
Mm.
we had similar issues. Um, the game itself, if you want to get into that, I do think, though, to kind of cap off that last point, I think overall it was probably a success. The game itself was great.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's probably the most important thing, but the field obviously wasn't ideal.
Yeah, like I saw some photos like at the end zone. It looked like there was almost like there was like holes and like dirt. I mean, I'm sure like throughout the game, you got guys running with cleats that could happen, but before the game to not have that field in tip-top shape is almost an embarrassment. Like this is the NFL. Brazil, I don't think has ever had a game, an NFL game, and the one you get, which you got Packers Eagle, which is a pretty damn good game. You got a very good
Hmm.
game going in. You had two teams, both teams that won over 10 games last year, both teams that were in the playoffs last year. The Eagles were in the year before. The Eagles were in the Super Bowl. The Packers have had lots of success for a very long time, obviously. And you give them that field. That's a definitely a concern. Like you said, it's a soccer field. I'm not sure, how that works. Obviously, I mean, both you're doing a lot of running in both. Soccer's a little different because I guess because the goalies don't really run much outside their little box. Obviously, NFL, it doesn't matter what position you are, you're running no matter what. Maybe even the linemen have to run, a little bit down the field to block and up to the next play and things like that. The field wasn't great. It's unfortunate Jordan Love gets hurt at the end. Thankfully, it wasn't season ending, which people thought at first. It seemed like he's going to miss. When I heard 3 to 6 weeks of sprained MCL, they got Malik Willis going to take over
Hmm.
from there. But yeah, overall, it was a really good game. Saquon Barkley had a huge game. He actually had more touchdowns than Daniel Jones has had since he signed his contract. So maybe the Giants should have paid Saquon over Daniel Jones, but we'll get to the Giants a little bit later. Yeah, he looked phenomenal. He had over 100 yards and 3 touchdowns. He had a big game. Uh, it's going to be very exciting to see Saquon Barkley behind a good offensive line, but really the first time in his career. He never really had an O line
Hmm.
with Giant, which may have been part of the reason that he had some regression at times and had some injury problems. But if that guy stays healthy, he could possibly have the best year of his career. And Jalen Hurts, who started off really rough, he comes out there, threw a really bad interception. He had a fumble. From there, kind of settled in and played very well. Jordan Love overall, I thought he played okay. I think he had some throws that he like I want that one back. But also had some throws that were very, very good. Jade Reed had a big game. He had some big plays. He had a couple touchdowns. So overall, it was a really good game. But just a shame the Packers lose Jordan Love because now you're stuck with Malik Willis, a very unproven quarterback, a guy who I don't have much confidence in. I know there was rumors they were talking to Ryan Tannehill. I don't know. I think it'll be a good idea to sign him. He's probably better than Malik Willis. I know he's obviously at the very, very back end of his career. I mean, he played in LaFleur's the coach. I forget if they crossed paths in Tennessee. I know LaFleur was the coordinator there. I,
Should I think they did, yes.
they might have. So
Yeah, yeah.
be able to play in that offense, I feel like it can't. So I feel like it's a good fit. Obviously, you're bringing the guy off the street and it's throwing him in, and that's always risky. And Tannehill, it's not like you're bringing in. It's not like Tannehill could be a star for every single team. He's a backup at this point in his career.
Hmm.
But at the same time, you're 0-1. You're in a very competitive division. With the Detroit Lions, who are arguably a Super Bowl contender. The Chicago Bears, if they get good quarterback play, could be a very good team. The Vikings, aren't a great team, but they start off with a win. So you're in a very competitive division. If Love misses 4 or 5 games and you end up, at if you're 2-5 by the time he comes back, or 2-4, now Love, who's coming off a sprained MCL, that you just paid a huge sum of money, by the way. Now to hit the ground running, it's really a good spot to be in. And it's the team that a lot of people think could have a really good year and is projected to at least be in the playoffs. I know people think they could be in the Super Bowl. I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but still, they should be. They could be what they did last year. Last year they had 11 wins and they won a playoff game. That's not out of the question. I would say, and now you're putting that in danger. So yeah, that's a tough law. But overall, outside of the field, I think it was a very good game.
Yeah, no, I think another NFL got really lucky, I feel like, with these first two games both being as good as they were. And again, like we mentioned, for the the new Brazilian fans at this game inevitably um, got involved in the sport. I think was fans slipping and injuries aside, a great game for them to watch. The Jordan Love thing, I might be wrong, but from what I'm hearing, Love or Ferd was pretty adamant that Love's not going to the IR. So that tells me that at the very least is not going to be 4 games. So we're looking at more of the 3 week side of that timetable. He's definitely not playing this week, obviously. He's
No.
technically doubtful. They haven't ruled him out yet. He's not playing this week. I would be surprised if I'm no doctor. I'd be surprised if he comes back next week. I think you're targeting week 4, which I think is the Vikings. Let's say hypothetically this team's 0-3. I don't think that's that big of a hole to climb out of. I mean, I think they were what, like 2-5 last year or something like that, and they finished 9-8 and made it in that 7 seed. I think you're looking that 7 seed to be the same record in the NFC. In a um definitely a weaker division than the AFC. I think 9 wins, definitely 10 gets you in the playoffs. So can this team with Jordan Love returning go what 10-4? I think so. So I think if he's missing a few weeks, I don't think that's a big deal. If he's missed, obviously, if he was to miss more time for whatever reason, I think that's a really big deal considering their options are Ryan Tannehill that's struggled around the league. His time in the NFL as a starter at least has come and gone. I think he can be a decent band-aid for a couple weeks, sure. And then there's a Malik Willis who also funny enough was kind of drafted as the first
Right, they play together.
attempt to replace Ryan Tannehill before Will Levis.
That's how they'll like replace
But
him, which is hilarious.
it didn't work out.
No.
He hasn't looked that great. What is he, year 3? I think he was in the 22 draft. You don't really know what you have in him until you, I guess, give him an extended run. But if it's anything like we've seen before, I wouldn't hold my breath if you're a Packers fan. The game itself, I would say both quarterbacks, after getting their bag, kind of disappointed. I think especially Jordan Love. I think there's a lot of throws he'd want back.
Yeah.
Um, a kind of a sloppy game from him. I think he completed under 50% of his passes or close to it, which is quite surprising. Yeah, 17 for 34, 260, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Hurts 20 for 34, 278, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Both teams, I think, ran it pretty well on the ground, with their new additions to running back. Barkley, 24 carries, 110, and 2 touchdowns. Jacobs, 16 carries, 84 yards. I think getting a little bit more of a workload than maybe we thought, because of course AJ Dillon is out for the year, which I think if you're a Packers fan, you don't want to see anyone injured, but I would say that AJ Dillon was one of the more weaker used running backs in the league. So more Josh Jacobs probably isn't a bad thing. But yeah, Jordan Love, there's probably throws he wants back, there's more meat in the bone he uh and could have had. Obviously, from an injury standpoint, I think you're just thankful if you're a Packers fan, it's not season ending and not anything close to it, because if you saw the replay, which I know you did, that looked bad, right?
Not let go.
And a lot of the Twitter doctors, again, Twitter
Yeah.
doctors are Twitter doctors. A lot of what was being thrown around was like, oh, you're looking at an MCL, an ACL, maybe an Achilles. We're talking like, a couple months, maybe season ending. So given that, I think you'll take 3 weeks all day. Hurts on the other hand, again, struggled. I mean, I do think there are some good moments. There's a lot of dimes that he dropped, a lot of great throws that he made, especially the one to Saquon in the back corner of the end zone. That was a great throw. And again, we know how good he is with his legs. He can, when he has a clean pocket, make great throws. But I feel like there's times where he definitely tries to force things,
He
especially when
struggled
this
with
team
constructor for sure.
yeah, and when this team gets off schedule, I do think he forces things. That first pick, he just threw into double coverage, tried to throw it across the seam, and the route got jumped. It was a really poor throw. It was pretty much an arm punt. I think they had the ball at their 3, and then Packers get the ball like the 25. I do think the Eagles defense forced a field goal, so it wasn't too bad. But I think the quarterback play was a little bit shaky, but like we said with the Chiefs Ravens game, it's week one, so you expect those kinks to kind of be worked out as the season goes by. And yeah, I think it was a great game. I worry about the Packers. One thing I worry about the Packers, similar to the Ravens, is they were pretty much bullied on the ground, and that's always kind of been the buck on the Packers defense, um, especially under oh my God, why am I blanking on the name? The DC for the Packers before Halfley was
Barry,
hired.
yes.
Joe
Joe Barry.
Barry. Oh, how can I forget?
Packers
Joe
fan.
Barry. Yeah. Joe, that was the knock on the Joe Barry defense was it was too vanilla. It was too bend don't break.
They,
Sometimes bend and break.
for 3 years, you could run it down the throat. That's why I think
Right. Yeah.
they made the change.
And Halfley's defense does play fast. It's simple, but it plays fast.
Yeah.
And it's a lot more of an aggressive style of defense. And yes, you're going up against one of the great offensive lines in the league, but you did just get bullied. So that's something to clean up for the Packers defensively. And ultimately, I think both teams, you're looking at two teams that are probably going to be playoff teams. I don't know, and we're going to get to the Cowboys later. I don't know if the Eagles can be division winners just because the Cowboys are such a good regular season team, playoffs withstanding. And the Packers, you're probably looking at a wild card spot, depending on how much time Jordan Love misses, but we might get this matchup again. So we'll kind of see how things pan out.
Yeah, and going back to Jordan Love, if he's missing 3 games, they get the Colts this Sunday, then they get Tennessee, then they get Minnesota, and then they get the Rams. Those are the next 4 games. Colts are a team that's a young team that's might be a year away. Titans are a team, they aren't great. You got a young quarterback there, a rookie head coach. Vikings are a team that obviously was kind of throwing had a tough offseason with losing McCarthy and losing some other pieces.
Hmm.
The Rams are a pretty good team. It did lose, I don't looks like Puka Nacua is going to be out there for that game, but they overall are a solid team that could be in the playoffs. After that, it's Arizona and Houston. So, if you had Love, I would think, all right, this team could be, 3-1 heading into the Rams game. Without him, I'll that's a little more uncertain. If he misses Indy, Green Bay, and Minnesota, Indy, Tennessee, and Minnesota. Those are 3 winnable games. Obviously, with having Malik Willis as your quarterback isn't ideal, and those become a lot harder. But they could, if they can, if they're 1-3 for the Rams game, Love comes back and they grab the Rams game. Arizona's the game they should win, and you have a tough test against Houston. That's you could stay afloat. The
Hmm.
expectation right now might be, all right, a team that wins 11 games and maybe wins a couple playoff games to, all right, they're just getting into the playoffs. But this is not an ideal situation. When you lose to a starting quarterback this early, obviously this is an extreme case, but the Jets lose their starting quarterback last year, and all of a sudden things went from we could be 12-5 and be in the conference championship to all right, let's try to sneak into the playoff. Obviously, it didn't end up working out. But yeah, so the Packers expectations have probably changed at this point, and hopefully they get even competent quarterback play because that roster is more than good enough with competent quarterback play to win football games.
Mhm.
And the next game we're going to cover is Steelers against the Atlanta Falcons. Steelers win 18-10 in a bit of a surprise. Justin Fields steps in for an injured Russell Wilson. Kirk Cousins and the Falcons, not a great start. So what are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, no, this is a game that we're really looking forward to. Obviously, it's the Falcons offense. What does it look like with an actual quarterback? That was kind of the draw to the game, but we also know, like we talked about a week ago, that I don't know what Mike Tomlin does to get this team to the 9-8 it's inevitably going to, but they're always a competitive team. And just like we kind of mentioned with, Love, Hurts struggling, the Ravens kind of defensively looking out of shape. Again, granted, Chiefs. But again, the Falcons kind of looked rough week one. A lot of kinks to be worked out. Nothing I'm like worried about. I mean, it's a week one with a guy coming back from a torn Achilles. He's 38 or 36, I think, right? Yeah, 36. Um, it's a totally different playbook. It's a totally different system. So from a Kirk Cousins perspective, yeah, he looked rough, but you had to deal with a great defensive line led by TJ Watt. You had to deal with a competitive Steelers team and a competitive Steelers defense, and it's your first game. I You can't help but be a little bit disappointed about the Falcons' performance. But ultimately, my takeaway from this game is pretty much twofold. One, the Steelers are going to be a competitive team. Whether they're going to be a good team, I don't know. Um, but you're probably looking at another 8-9, 9-8 season for them, just again, because Mike Tomlin. Um, Nothing you looked at Justin Field. Obviously, Justin Field starts. Nothing you really look. You kind of had like the training wheels on, kind of in game manager mode. So nothing really to take away from him. Nothing bad, I would say, but nothing that you're overall happy with or looking forward to with him. I believe he is getting the start week 2, so maybe they kind of give him more of a free reign um, to operate, but I doubt it considering this worked pretty well. Their defense looked great. TJ Watt looks like he's the front runner for Defensive Player of the Year already with his performance. And then from the Falcons' perspective, yeah, I love the fact they're getting Bijan more involved right away. I think he had like 12 carries in the first half, finished with at least, I believe, around 17, 18. And that's in a non-favorable game script. So I love the fact that they're actually using him. Kyle Pitts caught a touchdown. So maybe, for those Kyle Pitts fantasy managers, maybe this is finally your year. Um, Even though it looked like he was going to miss the game because of a hamstring injury. But ultimately, I think for the Falcons, yeah, again, week 1, it's not the final product. But I think obviously if the Falcons want to be successful this season and accomplish the goals of winning the division, they're going to need Kirk to play better.
Yeah, he did not play well. That one interception at the end was really bad. It's into double coverage, just a really bad throw. And yeah, that offense didn't look great. There was a lot of expectations, like you said. You've drafted a lot of young pieces. Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts were very high picks in back-to-back years. They just needed a quarterback to tie it all together. And now you finally get a decent quarterback in Kirk Cousins, and then he went out there and it didn't look all that much different, which is disappointing. But look, so from their end, they got to improve offensively. Kirk, like you said, he's coming off 200 kills at 36. That's not easy to do. But he's a decent quarterback. He's obviously not gonna win you a Super Bowl, but at the very least, in that division, they should be able to win that division without that many issues. If you just look at the roster, that division's really bad. On the Pittsburgh side, look, the defense looked absolutely phenomenal. Forcing turnovers. I think TJ Watt looks incredible, and offensively, look, Fields. He didn't turn the ball over. He Look, they didn't have an offensive touchdown. They had 6 field goals, and then their defense did the heavy lifting. So that's obviously something that's got to be better. They don't really have another. They only have 2 weapons in George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth. That line, some Waddle's injured. You got a couple young guys on that line. Running him is great with Harris Warren. That's just an okay running back duo to me. So I think Arthur Smith's a better play caller than Matt Canada, but most guys in the league are. Matt Canada was very bad.
Yeah.
On the Arthur Smith, although he's a very bad head coach because he overcomplicates everything, I think he's overall a good offensive mind and a decent play caller. I don't think that's a horrible hire by any means. Just you didn't have an offensive touchdown. Kind of reminds me like even when, like last year, even when the Jets were playing somewhat well in the beginning of the year, down Aaron Rodgers, it was just like at some point you come and knew, all right, they're scoring one offensive touchdown every game, and their defense doing the heavy lifting, they're kicking a lot of field goals.
Right, you can't sustain that. Yeah.
At some point when you start playing better teams, your defense is going to get tired out, and you're gonna end up start giving up 27, 30 points, and and all of a sudden scoring 16 points isn't going to cut it. 16, 18 points, that's not going to cut it. So they're going to need to put the ball in the end zone. Obviously, they're going to need to get better offensively. Where that's with Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. I don't think Fields is a better fit for the offense because that line, I don't really think is that good. And so you need someone that can move around. Russell Wilson needs about 3 light years to throw the ball. He'll throw the ball forever. Fields runs around a lot. I don't think he's the best passer. I think he's hard to game plan for. Russell Wilson isn't really that hard to game plan for. Like, he's going to sit in the pocket, and if he gets time, hopefully gets an open receiver. If he does not get time, he's going to either take a sack or turn the ball over or make a bad throw. Simple as that. And also, you know what Russell Wilson is. The guy's on the back nine of his career and probably like finished like whole 15 at this point. Fields, obviously first round pick by the Bears. Wasn't great in Chicago, but didn't have the best situation. He goes to a better situation in Pittsburgh, kind of a last hurrah for him. Last chance to prove that he is a starter in this league and he's not a first round bust. At least give him a shot. No whole thing like, oh, Tomlin's never had a losing season, but at some point, you got to get out of this mediocrity hole. So Russ is probably a safer option at the position, but Fields is a little more boom or bust. But the boom is probably going to the playoffs. The bust might be 6 wins and a really bad year and a complete reset, but that might be what they need if they just can't get out of this mediocre hole. But if nothing else, their defense look really good.
Mm-hmm.
That's that game. Next one we're going to talk about is the Bills Cardinals. So Nick's Bills, a tough start. But they come back and they pull out 34-28. So Nick, let's start with the Buffalo Bills. What were your takeaways from the Buffalo Bills in week 1?
No, yeah, you mentioned the start wasn't ideal, right? You get down in a 17. Well, first off, let's start in the first quarter. I mean, the Bills defensively are known, especially last year, the book on them was that they defensively start the games would be come out very slow. They're one of, when they face a team's kind of opening game script, it's not, they haven't really been able to adjust to start the game, and you would very often have teams score on their opening possession against the Bills. So when the Cardinals um did end up doing that, although granted it was helped by a very tough call, you're gonna have calls go against you, and that's just reffing, right? Reffing's a hard thing to do, so I try not to get too negative on the refs because I can't do it. But at the same time, if you saw, Jamarcus Ingram was going for a tackle. I think Kyler was trying to scramble. He became a runner, slides down. Obviously, when you slide as a quarterback, you have that protection because you're a defensive player. Jamarcus Ingram, as he's sliding, he isn't under the assumption that Kyler's going to slide. He's going to go to hit him. He sees he's sliding, he stops, kind of tried to jump over him, and I think maybe he like grazes him a bit. I think the replay showed, I don't even know if he did. Um, and it's called roughing the passer. Look, obviously as a Bills fan, I was a little bit disappointed, but as a fan of football, you're asking the defenders to do way too much because like someone like Kyler, like, you know, I know the Kenny Pickett fake slide thing's pretty much banned, but it's really hard, similar to when a quarterback's going to the sideline, it's really hard for defenders to know when these quarterbacks are giving themselves up and becoming defenseless. And you're already asking them too much because, I mean, like your main goal when you see a quarterback running the ball, especially like Kyler, is to tackle them in the play, tackle the player, obviously. And if you're asking a defender to make a split-second decision, to not hit a quarterback, if they think they're going to be a defenseless player, it can lead to like situations like this where, if the defender thinks the quarterback's going to slide, but the quarterback does not slide and he keeps going or fakes him out with a jump cut, he's scoring. So it's really a kind of tough situation you're putting the defender in because their main priority is just making a play, and the quarterback kind of has the advantage either way. Either they slide, the play's over, and they can get hit, and it's a flag, or they can fake out the defender and score a touchdown basically off of it. You see similar things with going to the sideline. I see it with Mahomes a lot, where he runs to the sideline, and he could very easily fake that he's going to the sideline and kind of get a few more yards by tippy-toeing, around the defender. And the defender is in a bad position because either he lets the play go dead and the quarterback gets a few more yards out of it because he thinks he's going out of bounds, or he just absolutely hits him and he's out of bounds. That's a 15-yard penalty. So you kind of are putting the defender in a really precarious situation. But regardless, yeah, the Bills came out really slow. Josh turns the ball over again, gets hit, trying to make extend a play. I kind of talked about this earlier, where there is times where he will kind of get into a mode where he just needs to make a play on a play, won't let a play die, and he gets strip sacked. And the Bills are down in a 17-3 hole right away. At that point, I'm thinking we're on pace to lose this game. Because recently the Bills have not had a great track record week one, and this is going to be a fun Cardinals team, at least offensively, anyways. Defensively, we'll kind of talk about that. They were not strong defensively, but I don't think that was kind of the strength of this team. I think people knew heading in, this is a team that can score 30, but will give up 35. Um, but the Bills showed a lot of adversity, coming back, outscoring the Cardinals 24-11 in the second half. Josh Allen throwing for two touchdown passes, running for two others. The Bills showing some diversity in their attack with, I think, 8 different pass catchers getting catches. Kincaid himself not really being involved in the offense, yet you get contributions from Keon Coleman, from Dawson Knox, from Khalil Shakir with another great contact balance display, scoring another touchdown. James Cook ran hard. Ray Davis got involved. Josh, obviously, with his legs for 2 touchdowns. So, from a Bills perspective, you really like the diversity of how you can attack a defense with all the weapons and the ability to run the ball. And then from a Cardinals perspective, um, it sucks that you couldn't close out this game, but I do really like the fact that despite Marvin Harrison not really getting involved, this was still a really good offense and a really good offensive performance. Kyler played, I think, an incredible game. And I think this is kind of a personal take for me. I think people kind of forget how good Kyler Murray is because of the whole Call of Duty jokes and
Yeah.
the injury he dealt with a few years back and just the fact that his teams have not been great. But I think I feel that the Cardinals are building something. And so as a Cardinals fan, you really have to be excited for this. And as a Bills fan, you kind of take it. Like I mean, a win's a win. I'm happy for it. There's things to clean up. One, I think the biggest takeaway for me is Von Miller has a pulse. He is back enough. Like I don't know if he's definitely not gonna be back to his old prime self, but he got a sack, had a few snaps, playing really good run defense. He was able to move the pocket a little bit and kind of make Kyler kind of move off his platform. And then Gregory Rousseau, I mean, he's up for a contract. He's on the 5th-year option right now. 3 sacks this game. An incredible performance from him, and a performance the Bills desperately need with kind of the state of their defensive line and how kind of aging it is, and the fact there's not really that kind of one guy. Like there's no number one pass rusher there that has emerged. And if Rousseau can emerge as that this season, I think that really helps a defense that has lost a lot of pieces. So ultimately, a good win, but there's a lot of things to clean up. And if you're a Cardinals fan, even despite the loss, I think you should be really excited.
Yeah, Arizona. I mean, when we did game picks last week, I picked Buffalo because although I thought it'd be a close game, I didn't think that it would be. I didn't think Buffalo would blow them out of the water. I had a feeling it'd probably be a one-score game. I thought in the end, I just thought that Buffalo, their secondary, Arizona secondary is not that good. Very experienced. You got a guy in Josh Allen who can just in his sleep throw the ball 80 yards. That's just not going to bode well when you have a young secondary. So, but Buffalo comes out on top. Now we talked about Josh Allen. He'll win you a bunch of games, but he might lose you a game or two. So we almost lost you. Didn't lost you out. I thought he played very well overall. And then, but yeah, they were able to come back and win. Kyler Murray might have nightmares for the next year about not finding
Hmm.
Marvin Harrison in the last play. He was as wide open as you'll get at any level of football, NFL, college, JUCO, high school, doesn't matter. That and I don't like his comment about, oh, it's not my job. Kind of is your job. I mean, you are the quarterback. So that's kind of I don't like him. He always comes up very arrogant, and I mean, whenever it's double XP weekend, I don't even know what that means. I don't play Call of Duty. Never like I guess you get extra points when you play Call of Duty. He's never won a game. It's just kind of you know it's weird. And then they had put that thing in his. They took it out because he complained about it, but they put the thing in his contract. He's like he has to study a certain hours a week. The fact that I even had to think about that is a concern. But as a talent on the field, I do think he's a very good quarterback if he can put it all together. Also, now he's got a potential generational receiver, Marvin Harrison. But yeah, that was a really good game overall. Also, if you're the Bills, at least you got all your receivers involved, and that receiving coach obviously is questionable. Looked good. Their defense, again, a little concerning, but something that can be cleaned up. Von Miller looked okay. Like you said, you need someone like Rousseau or Basham to emerge from that pass rush. And from Arizona, obviously, you need the defense to be a little bit better, but there needs someone to emerge. Well, both when it comes to up front, whether it's Darius Robinson or whether it's somebody else, and in the secondary, you can't just be the Buda Baker show at the safety position. So this is the kind of game that the inferior team kind of came out hot, and then there's a better football team just kind of got together and found the way to win. Next game we're going to cover is a Bears Titans. Bears win 24-17. Caleb Williams only 93 yards in the game.
Yeah, a really strange game, considering the Bears won this pretty much primarily off the back of their special teams and defense, which if you want to talk late, you want to project late into the season, that's a great thing considering you're not putting the pressure on your young quarterback to kind of do everything. But clearly from a Caleb perspective, I felt that they were very much kind of holding his hand. And look, that's fine. I mean, I know we got enamored with the whole like CJ Stroud looking great in his rookie year, or and Anthony Richardson looking great for those first 2 weeks before he got hurt last year. But more often than not, your rookie quarterback needs that support, even if they are kind of I wouldn't say Caleb Williams was touted as a generational prospect in the light of like a Luck or a Trevor Lawrence, but he was one of the more kind of intriguing 1-1 picks in recent drafts, and obviously a highly touted prospect. But I think it's smart process by the Bears and Eberflus to kind of give Caleb some structure, give him some support, and then open up his talent and open up the playbook later in the season. Caleb didn't have that great of a game. The defense though for Chicago looked great, even if it was helped by Will Levis trying to throw the game away late and spawning a really cool meme with his hands behind his back mid pick. But I think from a Bears perspective, it's a good win. It's a win you probably need, and it's a win if you want to make the playoffs. And I do think the Bears are a kind of a sneaky contender for that 7th seed that not a lot of people in the NFC want. These are games that you kind of just need to win, and for me, I think the Bears kind of got away with one. And for the Titans, it's tough because Will Levis at points looks great, and at times he looks like he is pretty much Jameis Winston from the fact of he can make some great throws, but then he'll make some really head-scratching throws that will cost you a game. So, um, this was certainly an interesting game. Definitely a week 1 game. This screams to me week 1, where teams are trying to kind of get their get rid of the kinks. And I mean, scoring 24 points without scoring an offensive touchdown is kind of crazy to me. But yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Caleb, he did not look good at all. He was very erratic. He only threw for 93 yards. I mean, he did not turn the ball over, which is good. If he had 2 picks, that would have been to the point where you would, I think, if you're Matt Eberflus, might be like, all right, let's go, let's sit this guy down. But he didn't have any turnovers. He didn't lose you the game, but he certainly didn't win it either. Obviously, 93 yards in 6 weeks isn't going to cut it. But in his first pro game, like I'm not a Caleb fan by any means. I've said that many times on and off camera, but it's just the first game of the guy's career. You can't, you can only take so much from that. And I mean that offense is very, very talented. He should be able to, at least kind of game manage his way to a decent year. Not much problems. Yeah. To me, the main concern with the Bears was probably the defense and the offensive line. The line, Could have been probably be a little better. We'll see how that progresses as the year goes on. But the defense obviously looked phenomenal. You had the pick six. That's a really bad mistake, obviously, on Levis's part. On Tennessee's part, I was not high on Levis coming out. He flashed a little bit last year. Didn't really have a great team to work with, obviously. Team's a little bit better this year. You had some weapons for him. Overall, didn't look good. That pick at the end was really bad. And obviously, it's funny, the reaction he gave, but also from an NFL perspective, it's not a great look. Just staying on your knees, if your hands on your head, you gotta, try and run after him. Obviously, you don't want your quarterback making the tackle. Remember Sam Darnold was with the Jets because Darnold actually he played linebacker in high school. So a couple of times on a pick he would make the tackle, and it actually wasn't a bad tackle because he used to play linebacker. And at one point, they just told him, "Can you please stop tackling?" They probably told him to stop throwing interceptions, but they told him like, we don't want you to get hurt. I know, you might want to go back to your high school days when you played linebacker, and you're maybe the best tackler in the league for a quarterback, but please stop doing that. But like, you can't just give up on a play in the NFL. But that's not the way it works, and I don't have much confidence in him. I'm just saying, I think Tennessee's roster is actually pretty good. I think it's massively improved. And I think if they get good quarterback play, they could possibly make the playoffs. I think that's their ceiling. But if they don't get good quarterback play, they're not going to be able to go anywhere, especially with a rookie head coach and a younger roster. But I would say both teams. If they get solid quarterback play, could be in the playoffs. If not, it could be a long season. All right, so that's Titans. We had the Patriots and the Bengals. Maybe the biggest upset of week one. A Patriots win 16-10. Bengals looked really off in that game.
Yeah, I think this is kind of weirdly becoming a trend with the Bengals. The week one Bengals, if there is a spread, if you're playing the week one Bengals, you might be favored in that game because the week one Bengals honestly are not what the Bengals are towards the end of the season. Every team kind of, you obviously want to peak at the end of the season. If you peak at the beginning of the season, you probably are not having a great year. So it's a little bit expected for them to come out of the gates a little bit weak, but not that weak. They have struggled. I mean, I think back to, I think last year against the Steelers, this year, obviously against 2 years ago against the Steelers, last year against the Browns, getting blown out. And obviously this year, losing at home to a Patriots team that I think is going to be one of the worst in the league. And I think there's a little bit more than just the game here that was going on. You had a T. Higgins that was out. You have a Jamar Chase that clearly wasn't trying that hard considering the whole contract negotiation issue. That I honestly don't even know why he suited up, to be honest with you. To me, it kind of felt like he was just a decoy out there. And he was kind of more concerned about staying healthy to get a contract that's coming up rather than contributing to the game. Which, I'm not, that's his decision, but I would have probably, if I'm, I'm the head coach, I'm probably thinking until we get this sorted out, I would rather just roll with Jamar being inactive, just to kind of be sure. Um, it was a really strange game. Joe Burrow didn't look that great. The Patriots, on the other hand, if you want to see a competitive team right out of the gates, here you go, right? This is exactly what you want if you're a Patriots fan, just from the standpoint of, you're not going to probably be able to win games 30-35. This is very much the game script they need to operate under, running the ball, playing hard defense, Jacoby Brissett playing like the 24th best quarterback in the league, kind of just, again, game manager. There's always a negative stigma towards it, but there's a place for it in the NFL and there's a place for it on certain teams. And I think he does that very well. And the Patriots defensively look incredible still, kind of was kind of the saving grace of this team the last couple of years. It seems to me that even despite losing one of the best defensive minds of all time in Belichick, Gerard Mayo is going to get this defense playing really well. And Ramondre Stevenson looked incredible. Ran with power, ran with pad level. Was a physical downhill runner today. And if you're gonna get that out of him, there's your dynamicism on the offense that's desperately needing it, which is funny because you don't really get it from a running back usually. But if they can have that effective run game, have that kind of uh, game manager
Yeah.
esque play from Brissett, just kind of limiting his turnovers, making the throws he needs to, not really doing much out of structure, and having coupling that with that level of defensive play, I think you have a competitive team in the Patriots for sure. And more importantly, if you're looking kind of projecting this team into the future, you're putting Drake May in, you're biding Drake May time and you're giving him a good situation to come into next year.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think the only reason May's not out there is because that off the line in England is really bad. To me, I think they're basically using Brissett as a punching bag because if you throw May
Hmm.
behind the off the line, he's going to get hurt. Like it's gonna happen. I
Hmm.
don't see how it doesn't. And he's clearly ready to start. Brissett is. I think when we did our show my show with you last week, I think I called him like if like Sadness was a quarterback. I said something like Jacoby Brissett is your starting quarterback. I like
Hmm.
wow. Like I'm so sorry. But hey, they Brissett went out there and actually looked pretty solid. I saw a stat for whatever reason he's had a good career against the Bengals. And then obviously he was in Cleveland for a year, so he played them once or twice. So he's overall throughout his career, I think, had success against the Bengals. I'm not sure if that had anything to do with why he started or how they were able to win the game. But like you said,
Hmm.
Ramondre looked very good. That's the kind of back he is. He's one of those, the guy's a hard downhill runner. He can catch the ball in the backfield, and he did his thing. But Bengals looked alarmingly off. I got last year struggling. Brown was hurt last year. He should not have been out there week one. Jamar Chase had said don't play him for week 5. He was partly joking. Of course, those two guys went to college together, so they're close friends, obviously. But he was I think part of him like, I don't know if he's healthy, and he was right. He was clearly not healthy the first 2 games of last year. And the shame is once he got together, then he broke his wrist and was out for the rest of the year. But this time he was completely healthy. Obviously, not having T. Higgins did not help. Jamar Chase, clearly being rusty and kind of just, in his head thinking, oh, if I cut like this, I might hurt my knee and I might lose $5. So I don't much
Hmm.
want to do that. So he definitely wasn't, head was not in the right space in that game for sure. But they had some bad drops, and you had a fumble on the goal line. Burrow had a couple of bad turnovers. It was a really sloppy game from the Bengals. The honestly looked unprepared, which when you think about it, isn't that big of a surprise. T. Higgins had a contract hold at one point. Although he subbed up by training camp, he didn't play. Chase still has a contract thing going on. He didn't look very good. Obviously, I think the tight ends. I forgot who it was. It might have been Tanner Hudson, maybe. Yeah, he had a really bad fumble on the goal line. Just there's a really messy game. They had some holding penalties that brought back some solid plays on the offensive end. So just a really sloppy game for the Bengals, and a little bit concerned just because they're playing a team that they should easily be beating, even with Higgins out and I guess half of Jamar Chase out. You
Hmm.
want to say
Yeah.
Browns to win that game and you didn't. So that's a concern for me. But the Bengals seem to come out the first couple of weeks sluggish every year, and they end up putting it together
Hmm.
and end up having a playoff run as long as they stay healthy. So I
Right.
think if Burrow stays healthy, I don't see. To me, they're still a bigger threat to the Chiefs because they're the only team that's beaten Mahomes in both the regular season and the playoffs. No one
Hmm.
else has done it. Buffalo hasn't been able to do it. Baltimore hasn't done it. Miami hasn't done it. None of these other teams have done it. But they got to keep Burrow healthy, which obviously he got through the game healthy, of course. But a very sloppy start. But New England picks up a surprise win, and then
Hmm.
for our next game, it is Texans Colts. Texans win 29-27 in that one.
Yeah, this was a game that really, I think this is probably one of the best games of the week. And it was a divisional game. It was going to be close. I think we all kind of agreed uh unanimously that last week that this was going to be a competitive game, and it was. You had a Colts team that you finally are able to see what Anthony Richardson can do. Again, like I said, obviously you don't want to see your rookie quarterback get hurt. However, I think the injury was certainly helpful in terms of his development, kind of making sure he doesn't, one, get himself hurt, Two, because he dealt with a couple of concussion scares in those first couple weeks. Two, just kind of letting the game slow down around him, giving him some time to kind of just learn and absorb in year one. And he looks great. Obviously, he's not the finished product. He looked a bit raw in the sense of there's some meat on the bone. There was some throws he could have made, probably should have made that he didn't make. But then there's throws that no one in this league, sans maybe a few quarterbacks, can make. I mean, that's I think the viral clip of him hitting like a 63-yard bomb, fading back, getting hit, throwing what, 63 air yards to Alec Burke. Or Alec Burke. Yeah, right. Uh,
Alec Pierce.
Pierce. Burke, I'm thinking of the NBA player. Jeez, there's too many Alex here. Alec Pierce,
uh,
the Cincinnati wide receiver. Yes, yes. I don't know why I don't know why that came about. Which by the way, if you can get anything, if you can get an emergence from him, with coupled with Josh Downs and Pittman,
yeah.
that's a pretty receiving trio. Um, but yes, that connection to Alec Pierce was a great throw, and it kind of just showcases how talented, how much arm talent Richardson has. Um, for the Texans perspective, despite the win, there's some concerns with how this D'Amico Ryan's defense played week one again, so I'm not terribly concerned. However, you probably want to look a little bit better defensively, especially the secondary kind of getting too much or too many big plays allowed there for my liking. However, I think you had your opportunities, you forced a couple of turnovers. So kind of an uneven performance from the defense, but I think they'll clean that up. Stroud looked just as good as before. Diggs gets introduced into the offense, kind of has a quiet game from a yards perspective, only 33, but catches all six targets, two touchdowns, obviously. Will grab the headlines. I think Nico Collins played great. Tank Dell had his moments. If this is the trio that we get, if this is kind of how they play throughout the season, I don't think there's a trio in the league of wide receivers that is as good as this. I think the only contender is probably um, the Bengals. Obviously, if you get a motivated Jamar Chase with a healthy Higgins and a Tyler Boyd, or a
Tyler
Bears team.
and Tyler Boyd's not even there anymore.
Oh my God. See, this guy's Tyler Boyd's been on, I'm sorry. Tyler Boyd's been in on the Bears or Bengals for like my
That's
entire life. So
so long.
seeing him not on there is crazy.
It's
Where
weird.
where'd he
Yeah,
go?
he went to Tennessee. He
Oh my God. That's why I don't remember because he's on
Tennessee.
Tennessee. That husk of an offense. Yeah. Well, I mean that duo with the Bengals, even if they have it for 1 year, because we it's pretty much inevitable that T. Higgins is walking. I mean, they
Yeah,
can barely pay Jamar Chase as is, and they have T. Higgins on the franchise tag. So, um, maybe the Bears with a Ndunze
yeah.
that emerges, Keenan Allen that stays healthy, and DJ Moore maybe can kind of compete, but this offense is looking scary. And the biggest thing I think is you have a Joe Mixon that's running hard and a Joe
Yeah.
Mixon that's motivated. And I think you got to get kind of has a reemergence, a rebirth on a new team.
Yeah,
If you have all those,
he's basically playing. This is basically the hometown kid because he went to Oklahoma, so I think he's from that.
right, yeah. It is, yeah, it's a homecoming, yeah, right. Didn't think of that. Um, if you have all those pieces clicking, this is a very dangerous offense. So from a Texans perspective, a great division win in a division I think that's going to be closely contested. So if you can get as many of those as you want, or you want to get as many of those wins as you can. Um, and from a Colts perspective, kind of sucks because this game could have been yours for the taking, but ultimately, I still think you're kind of. I do think this team can be a playoff team. However, I don't think with a stacked AFC they're going to. So from a Colts perspective, I feel like if you're a fan, you're more happy with just how much better Anthony Richardson looks than the result of the game.
Yeah, and that throw to Alec Pierce was gorgeous. He like almost fell down and just launched it. I mean, that's the thing of him. He's
Hmm.
got an incredible arm. He obviously is an incredible athlete. He's a big guy for that position, and he can run very well for his size, kind of like a Cam Newton. Yeah, Cam Newton's a guy who was big, but guy he could launch it, and was an incredible athlete, but just obviously was very erratic for most of his career. It's a shame because by the time he really learned to be accurate, then the injuries kind of cut his career a little bit short. And obviously he had some character concerns as well. But Richardson, kind of a similar kind of player. He's obviously got a lot of talent in the world. And I assume we'll get Jonathan Taylor involved. He's a very good back when he's healthy. The reason that I picked Houston last week, I mean, Houston's a better football team. Top to bottom, that's not really a question there. But the Colts secondary isn't great. It's probably the weakest part of our team, and you got Stroud in that offense, and that was probably the difference in this game. I mean, Houston picks up a win. I think we all knew, like you said, this is a divisional game. It's going to be a very good game, and it was. In that receiver trio, they looked really, really good. I wasn't sure how it was going to work with Diggs because he's had, as you know, as a Bills fan, great player, but can be a bit of a diva, off the field and even on the field. How would that work? Now it seemed like it works, so far so good in week one. Obviously, you got contributions from Collins, even Tank Dow gave you some contributions, Joe Mixon as well. So Houston looked really good. They probably, in my opinion, have the best roster in the league. Obviously, that doesn't, you still got to go out and execute. I mean, the New York Jets probably have one of the 5 or 6 best rosters in the league, and obviously we're gonna get to them later. Obviously, they lose week one. We're gonna get to them a little bit later, but yeah, the Texans look phenomenal, and for the Colts, you do lose, like you said, Anthony Richardson. If that guy could stay healthy, and I agree with you, the injury may have been a blessing in disguise because if he kept running like that, like for years, he was gonna find himself out of the league in a few years. Like it was going to happen. So if anything, it told him, all right, you can't not saying don't run. The guy's 6'5", 250, and he can run for 60 yards a game. Like that's incredible. But
Mhm.
you
Right.
can't. There's a difference between being using your legs to your advantage and just being completely reckless. When that's what he was doing. The kid's got a cannon, and if he ever learns to be accurate, he could be a superstar. So that was a really good game. Next game we're going to talk about is Dolphins Jaguars. Dolphins sneak by 20-17. Jason Sanders 52-yard field goal as time expires to win that one.
The Jaguars, I for the life of me can't believe they lost this game, considering they looked really good. I
Yep.
mean, you have a Trevor Lawrence with the addition of Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU, um, that looked really, really good. Kind of back to what he looked like in 2022, after kind of a down year in 23. Uh, I think ETN ran strong. I think this offense looked good. Defensively, this team looked great. Uh, I mean, this Jaguars team has the capacity to challenge for the division. But it's moments like these when they have to kill off the game that I think will stop them from doing so because by all accounts, this game should have been over. I believe it was for what, 14-3.
Yeah.
Or was it, yeah, 14-3 in the second quarter. Uh Help me out here. When ETN fumbled that ball, third quarter, correct?
Yeah.
Uh, was it, I believe it was 17-10 at the
Yeah.
time to make it a
Yeah.
two score. Yeah, so you have the ability to make it a two score game in the late in the third. That's pretty much the game there. I mean, it was Dolphins offense, not to kind of jump the gun, that wasn't working on all cylinders. Obviously, we know what kind of occurred pre-game that maybe might have thrown things into flux.
Yeah.
Um, but you got to close out those games when you
Exactly.
have them. And I don't think they were able to do that, obviously. And that's something they're gonna really have to clean up and find that like final knockout punch because right now they've been trying to for the longest of times to kill off games running the ball and they haven't been able to do it. And that kind of from a Jaguars perspective, if you're a fan of the Jaguars, stinks because this team is extremely talented. It has the capacity to compete with a lot of teams, but if it can't close out games, it's rendered meaningless. From the Dolphins' perspective, a shaky game. Not again, obviously, what happened pre-game might have influenced some things. I do think with the offense, especially Tua, you're gonna get one or two throws that he wants back. But when you have, yards after catch, producers like Hill and Waddle, especially that, Tyreek going 80 yards, taking like a 35-yard air yard pass, taking it 80 yards to score, you're gonna generate some really easy looks and some really easy throws and yardage opportunities. So the Dolphins are always going to be scary. Something to note, I don't want to jump the gun too much with the Bills prediction. Mostert looks like he's going to be out for this week with a chest
He might have been
injury.
already rolled out, yeah.
A-Chain looks like a game time decision.
Mm.
I, I'm 30 minutes ago, it was kind of ruled that he's kind of going to be a game time decision. So for fantasy managers, it's a little bit tough because do you start him? Do you not? If he can't go, then we're looking at Jalen Wright and Jeff Wilson Jr. I would imagine Jeff Wilson Jr. probably starts, considering he was the one who was active and got 5 rushing yards or 5 rushing attempts today. The Dolphins couldn't run the ball whatsoever. I think they had like Mostert had like 15 yards rushing on like
They didn't
it's
run the
like
ball well.
11 attempts. Yeah, Chain only had what 25 yards rushing. Did have a great touchdown catch and a decent day on the through the air, a really good day through the air, but running the ball wise, Dolphins couldn't really produce anything, which for me worries me if you're a Dolphins fan because in order for those easy looks to kind of present themselves, you need to establish a run game, and if they can't do that, that's going to be a lot tougher, and it's going to be make this team a lot more Tua dependent. Which, again, the moment you need him to kind of produce out of structure, I do worry about his ability to do that. So ultimately, Jaguars kind of gave this game away. The Dolphins, you take it, but there's some things to worry about heading into their Thursday matchup.
Yeah, Jacksonville, they're weird. On paper,
Hmm.
when you look at their roster, they look really freaking good. Look like they should be a contender. And then they take the field. You're like, oh, this team is mediocre as it gets. They're going to win at most
Hmm.
9 games. They're probably not going to the playoffs. They're very
Hmm.
weird. And it's a shame. For 2.5 quarters, they were the better team. They were playing much better. They're, down forever that kind of like hang around, but 17-10, you're driving, and then ETN fumbles. You lose all your momentum. Miami goes down, they tie the game. And then at that point, you might as well all the momentum. The kind of a defensive stalemate for a quarter or so, and then Sanders comes out, hits the field goal, and then the
Hmm.
Dolphins go home with a win. And Joshua had issues closing games last year. There's a question is, what do we do with Doug Pearson? What do we do with this guy? Because they closed the games last year. They were 8-3 last year, and they completely collapsed. Now it seems those issues have not been fixed. A week into the season, obviously that it's week one. Think they get things together, but that's a game they should have won. Tyreek Hill shows up to the field and he gets arrested, and then I know
That's
the
such a
video.
that's such a I just think about really quickly before a ball was kicked off on Sunday, you
Crazy.
had the Dak extension happen,
I
which
know.
we'll get into in the Cowboys game. You had the Kendrick Lamar halftime announcement.
Yeah.
And then you had Tyreek Hill getting put in handcuffs minutes away from the stadium. I mean, just an absurd sequence there.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I remember I wake up and I'm like, oh, Tyreek Hill got arrested. I was like, excuse me, he did what? Why? I was like, what do you mean he got arrested? And I
Yeah,
was like, he's like, no, like the first thing I heard was that Tyreek Hill's in handcuffs. I was like, what do you mean he's in handcuffs? I thought it was a fake tweet. And
yeah.
then
I thought I was getting fooled too.
I was getting duped. And then like his agent was like, oh, he's still gonna play. I was like, how?
Okay.
How can
Yeah.
I guess
Okay.
I guess it's just a side Shepard situation. The
Hmm.
videos they release, obviously you can make your own opinion on the video of obvious whether or not you think that he was the department was you know doing justice or not. That's a whole other discussion. That's a whole other podcast, to be honest. But he
Hmm.
he showed up to the game and he had an 80-yard touchdown. So
Only
clear
Tyreek Hill.
the Tyreek Hill experience, exactly. But yeah, Jacksonville should have won that game. But yeah, Miami's running attack. I get they're a pass first offense. Obviously, you have
Hmm.
Tyreek Hill, who's one of the best in the league. He's as fast as a receiver as we've seen in a while. Jalen Wallace got game changing speed. Obviously AJ can catch the ball out of the backfield, but they gotta be able to run the ball a little bit as well, especially with they have a new look defense. You change systems. You lose a couple of guys on that side of the ball. They're going to have to run the ball a little bit, and the running game needs to be a little bit better. And
Mhm,
like you said, they might be showing a third or fourth round rookie this week against the Buffalo Bills in the game that
mhm,
starts tonight.
mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Bills Dolphins, and let's move to our next game, which is all right. So we have a couple of stinkers in a row. Saints Panthers, which was ugly,
Y-
47
Yeah,
Saints.
we might need to have a discussion about Bryce Young
Yeah,
at this point. I was one of the few, I think maybe the only Panthers optimist on the podcast the other week. I
yeah,
really thought what they did in the offseason was putting together at the very least, respectable team around Bryce Young. So he could develop in an actual team and begin his learning process. I really feel like the situation he was dropped into last year was incredibly non-conducive to his success whatsoever. Um, and I am wrong. I know it's hard to you don't want to overreact to 1 week, but man, they looked just, if
yeah.
not bad, if not as more even more, or sorry, if not as worse, at very least just as bad as last year, from the standpoint of shooting themselves in their own foot, um, not being able to convert third downs. Bryce Young out of structure, just kind of winging it, making poor decisions, poor reads. That defense not being able to stop anyone, playing uncomplimentary football. It really does honestly bring up a discussion of, do you evaluate the prospect more or do you evaluate the situation they're going into? Because Bryce Young as a prospect, again, I don't think he even as was rated as highly as a Caleb Williams, for example, the guy that went right afterward, or the next year won one. But this was a guy that won a Heisman as a freshman, lit up that Georgia defense in the SEC championship game, had a shout for winning the Heisman in his junior year as well. I mean, this guy was an incredibly talented quarterback, one of the best to come out of the Saban Alabama kind of era. Um, I think a better prospect than Tua coming out as well. And you look at Bryce now. I mean, you look at Tua, right? Perfect example, right? He was kind of raw with Flores, kind of went through his struggles in that system. Mike McDaniel, it kind of feels unwanted. Mike McDaniel um, comes in, says, I want you. You're my guy. You're the guy to run this offense. Puts an incredible supporting cast around him. And look, I mean, you could talk all you want and how good Tua actually is, but there's no doubt that he is at least a functional starting quarterback in the NFL. And Pro Bowls are a joke, but he is a Pro Bowler, I guess now. Bryce Young looks like he's not even a backup anymore. I don't know what's going on. Like, it is honestly a testament to much how important a situation is to a prospect. Look at Mac Jones, look at Daniel Jones. Maybe those guys aren't, again, they're not going to light the world on fire, but you put them in a better situation, they're just obviously going to be better. And it also kind of gives ammunition to the people that say, hey, like, even if you draft a rookie that high, maybe you shouldn't start him year one regardless, like Drake Bay, right? He gets to sit and absorb and learn. Anthony Richardson gets to do the same. He looks wildly better and different in year two. I really do think that Bryce Young, it might be time to kind of admit that. Now it's again week one, and you always want to let due process happen. So we'll see heading into week 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. But man, I don't know, especially with the Derek Brown news, him going down as well. Man, if you're a Panthers fan, I'm sorry. Like, there's nothing really to look forward to.
It, 90 times, yeah, they looked horrible. This is my thing with Bryce. Look, I was never that high on him. I always had Stroud ahead of him last year. Dave Tepper disagreed with me, and he owns a football team, and I don't. So
I don't know why he owns a football team, but
that's
yeah.
what he does. He's It's because he has the money too. That's really the only reason, to be
Mm,
honest. He
yeah.
knows nothing about football. I would genuinely think he has to like ask like his like wife like whether the team is playing. Like it's wild how bad of an owner he is.
Mhm,
It's he's
mhm.
basically Dan Snyder about like the 19 crimes a week that Snyder was doing. It's bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Bryce, look, last year he was really bad.
Mhm,
They got it. The team was really bad. But now you improve the offensive line. You bring in a couple of decent
mhm,
receivers. You draft a talented bucket running back in Brooks, who you'll see in a few weeks. Uh,
mhm,
at this point, I'm not saying the guy has to turn to CJ Stroud, but if he's as bad as he was last year, now you have a problem. Now we're like, okay, maybe the roster isn't great, and we could do better, and we're still building. But if the guy can't play, he can't play. Now we start getting into Zach Wilson territory. Okay,
mhm,
yes, the play code could be better. Okay, yes, the offensive line could be a lot better. But at the same time, he's got a really good young running back in Brees Hall. He's got a couple of really good receivers, and Zach also had a defense that wasn't giving up more than 21 points a game. You know, at some point, if the guy's going out there throwing for 80 yards and he can't hit a screen pass,
mhm,
maybe the guy just isn't good. With Bryce, again, I'm not saying he has to be an all pro and lead a team to 10 wins, but if he's not, at least, somewhat significantly better, we even start wondering, like, if Carolina goes 3-14, they have the first pick next year, they finally have their first round pick again, you might have, like, they'll like some of the quarterbacks coming out and be like, are they better than Bryce Young? And if they are, it might be time to pull the plug. Yes, you hate to take a guy first overall, considering how much you gave up, but you're better off being like, you know what, we screwed up. Let's move on and let's start fresh because he looked really, really bad. He looked like he was not ready to be out there. And if it was a rookie, okay, it's his first game. There are things you could do. You can be a little more patient with that guy, maybe sit him down for now. But it's his second
mhm.
year in the league. He's already played for a year. So that's really concerning. A second year guy still looks like, he isn't ready to play in the NFL. So that was definitely concerning. On the Saints end, I mean, you played the Panthers.
Yeah, there's nothing really to take away from the Saints. I mean,
Yeah.
it's we kind of know the book on them this year. They're kind of in limbo. They've been in limbo for the last 5 years, thinking they can compete. It is a division that's is kind of up for the taking, I guess. So there's kind of that division win, sure. But again, like you said, it's the Panthers. So from the Saints perspective, every any evaluation you were able to take away from this for Derek Carr, for the offense, for the defense, has to really be, take it with a grain of salt. The Panthers at home, week one, like that's great. Great they did it. You don't want to take anything away from it, but we've got to see like them actually play a team.
Or real football team.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
if they had lost, that I would have probably said if they win 4 games, I'd be shocked. But they took care of business against a really, really, really bad football team
Hmm.
that might that may be able to beat like the best college team. They might be able. They might be able.
Right
That's
now, who knows?
they are horrid. This game was
Hmm.
Vikings Giants 28-6, and yeah, that one was also ugly. That was
Speaking of bad quarterback play,
right.
Daniel
Joe, like,
Jones, man, and
yikes.
again, and we'll get into in a bit another example of prospect and situation, right? Like Daniel or Sam Darnold looks terrible. He's seeing ghosts, right? That viral meme that went around, right? In New York with Adam Gase. And then you get him into a very QB friendly situation in Minnesota. And again, Giants, a team in the Giants that maybe isn't as talented as you like defensively and offensively, can't do anything, and we'll talk about that. But Sam Darnold looked pretty decent for what many thought he would. And that's really encouraging if you're a Vikings fan, if you want, if you're looking for a competitive team, and you have a rookie who, again, you never want to see someone get hurt, but just like Anthony Richardson, maybe this is a good thing for JJ McCarthy just to get to sit and absorb and learn. So from that perspective, I think the Vikings look really good. At least this is kind of the perfect start to your season, right? Like you have a defensive performance that's good, granted, against the Giants. Um, but Sam Darnold looks great. Your weapons look great. But from the Giants' perspective, what's the really talk more of the same, right? Like again, Daniel Jones bailing from pockets, not a lot of not great pocket presence, losing coughing up, losing the ball, making poor decisions, compounding issues on top of each other, inaccurate throws. Like you could, and what's crazy is he has the weapons now, right? He has a
Yeah,
Malik Neighbors now to throw to, and he has a great play caller in Brian Dable. Like that contract extension is going to haunt the Giants for a while. Granted, at least they can
long
get out
time.
of it soon.
Yeah.
So I think this is probably the last year of him in the Giants uniform. But yeah, I think we're kind of done with the Daniel Jones experiment. And I think it was made by, not to mention, there's no loyalty from this regime to Daniel Jones from the standpoint of
Yeah,
we're the ones
that's
who didn't
why
make the
it's so
pick.
bad because Shane sold for 15 touchdowns for a year and went $160 million. Meanwhile, he let Saquon walk and he has 3 touchdowns,
Yeah.
which Daniel Jones hasn't even done yet. He's throwing for the other team.
Yeah, yeah.
Or,
It honestly baffles me that they gave him that extension.
yeah,
It really does. I understand like it was an excited time. You weren't expected to be competitive and you make the playoffs. And Daniel Jones looks like the 18th best quarterback in the league. But do you give the 18th best quarterback in the league a $40 million bag? I get it that the draft in 2022 did not have a great wait, so help no, yes, that was going to the 2023 draft, correct? That
yeah.
year?
Yeah,
Yeah,
then
so I get it from
you
that
got the deal.
standpoint
Yeah,
of you'd have to trade up to get one of those guys in the 23 draft, but still, like, how different would this team look if they were able to trade up and even just grab like an Anthony Richardson if they could have, or even if they just didn't do anything and they just stunk last year and they were able to get a guy in the 24 draft, maybe they had a Penix and
yeah.
it's this team with Michael Penix, right? I just don't understand the process giving that contract out because you're kind of tying yourself to mediocrity. Maybe that's being polite. So yeah, it's another same old for the Giants, and I really hope they can get it back on track. But yeah, they really need to transition here.
Yeah, that was bad. I don't understand how Daniel Jones has lasted 6 years as a starter. It's beyond me that contract. I know there are rumors like he wants 40 million. I was like all right, cool. I want a Lamborghini. I'm not getting that either. Then he got it. I was like, oh no. As soon as he got it, I was like, oh no, what are you doing? And then he went out and threw 2 touchdowns and blew out his knee. And then so
Yeah.
yeah, he actually he has more pick sixes than touchdowns to his own team since he signed the deal. Saquon Barkley had more touchdowns in his first game as an Eagle than than Jones has since he signed the contract. He is just horrific. Are we sure that he's the best quarterback on his own team? Like, are we sure? Is he really? Can he look me straight in the eye from a Zoom call and tell me that Drew Lock is worse than Daniel Jones?
I mean, you saw like I mean, at least Daniel Jones had a pulse or Drew Lock had a pulse. I mean, remember the Monday night game against the Eagles
Yeah,
last year? Um, you know, honestly, I can see that happening. Maybe not this early, but let's say we hit midseason and kind of seeing the same. I could totally see them going to Drew Lock because again, they have no loyalty to him. Let me just pull up his contract real quick just to make certain of this.
I'll say this.
Uh,
I'll say this. Tommy DeVito, a rookie undrafted guy who grew up down the street. His mom still makes his bed. The same crappy ass offense looked much better with him than with Jones last
Yeah,
year.
no. So I'm looking on Sport Track right now, or Spot Track right now. There is a potential out after the second
There is,
year.
yeah.
So yeah, so he's gone.
Yeah,
He
he
is
will not
gone.
be on the team next year. There's no.
Because yeah, I mean the 20 if you're interested if in alternate reality if Tanner Jones was good, his 2025 and 2026 seasons, so his 28 age 28 and age 29 seasons. which by the way, he's not a young player anymore. He is 27 now. So he is supposed to be in his prime. If this is his prime, I'm scared. Um, his cap hit for the next 2 years is 41.5 million and then 58.5 million. So suffice to say, he is not back on this team.
Mm,
But
50
his cap
and
hit, his
half. Ew.
dude, his cap hit this year is $48 million. That's
Oh
insane to me.
my God.
So
48
yeah, that's
million
20%
dollars.
of their cap space. Yeah, so I can imagine that this is going to be his
Wow.
last year. So honestly, you give it a couple. I have no. I don't understand at all what the incentive of playing Daniel Jones is by week 8. Because if he gives you what he gives you right now, and we're at week 8, you're drafting a quarterback anyways. You're letting him walk, obviously. So the only thing I can think of that it's worth, you know, playing him by then is like, hey, like if there's no, for whatever reason, we're, I mean, they're going to be bad enough to where they can draft a quarterback. But if for whatever reason that doesn't evolve, maybe you could bring him back on a really cheap deal. But yeah, no, his Giants career is winding down.
Yeah, the only way I see him playing, even at the start, even in the next few weeks, maybe at the end of the year, maybe you throw him out there just to showcase him. Maybe someone will throw you a fifth round pick for him if you eat some of the money. But I don't. That's the only way. I don't even know if I would start him this week. Obviously, they are. So you know that's that, I guess.
We'll
But
see.
exactly. But honestly, if he's just as bad in the first half, if I'm Brian Dable, I'd say enough. Sit your ass down. Uh, put your lock in. Like they can't keep running this guy out there game after game after game. The guy just doesn't have it. He just doesn't. Because and if he keeps running it out there, at that point it falls on Dable. At that point, look, the guy is hard.
Mhm,
Your GM screwed up. He put you in a tough spot. But if
mhm,
he keeps running the guy out there week after week after week, that's the definition of insanity. Is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different
mhm.
result. So at that point,
Right.
be able to become insane just for even putting the guy out there. So yeah, we'll see
Mm,
how it happens this week, but it's hard to have any confidence with the New York Giants.
mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
Next game was Chargers Raiders. Chargers pick up the win 22-10.
So I'm looking at this from two angles. I'm looking at it from a Chargers perspective. What we talked about last week already is coming to fruition a little bit. Granted, again in week 1, but if you're a John or a Jim Harbaugh led Chargers team, this is what he does, right? This is what Jim Harbaugh does.
Yep.
He is a incredible motivator, like that CEO type, right? That
Yeah,
can immediately raise the floor of his team and get them playing a lot better early on than people would think. This defense, especially, it's night and day
absolutely. And I'm
compared.
feeling too.
Yeah, and especially
Skelly out of there.
with those nose tackles, like a Puna Ford and a Ogbonna and Morgan Fox, and obviously you have Joey Bosa. That defensive line was incredible the other day. Which is crazy considering they were incredibly squishy last year. It just should go to show you what scheme and honestly, this is more so, I guess, you see it a lot with like college, like USC this year, another Los Angeles-based team doing this, where defense is really an effort thing more than anything. And if you prioritize defense, and you have a good teacher of defense that prioritizes it, you're going to have a very least baseline level defensive play. And I think that's really the big takeaway is the Chargers' identity is clearly taking shape under, what a classic Jim Harbaugh team is. It's kind of night and day, right? They went from a high-flying, squishy team in Brandon Staley to a team that's going to be physical on both sides of the ball, um, and has weapons still offensively that can give a team problems. McConkey scores his first touchdown. I'm really excited to see what he can do with Justin Herbert. Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins ran strong. That line had its. Joe Alt did have a really good game. Granted, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't he play limited snaps today or
Who?
the other day, or was he a full time starter today?
Alt?
or the other day. Yeah.
Alt, I believe, was there the whole time.
Okay. Yeah. It might have just been I saw like something floating around that he kind of oh no. I think it was Alt's 1v1s with Crosby, I think was kind of the stat flowing around.
Yeah, that's what really stood out.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Yeah. Um Joe Alt, like really highly touted pick out of Notre Dame. I mean, you pick a tackle round, pick five. You're really expecting a lot. But he's
Yeah,
from Notre Dame, so obviously he has to be good. But no, yeah, an incredible performance. Talk about a welcome to the NFL moment going up against Max Crosby in your first game. So overall, I mean, a really encouraging performance from the Chargers. You know, again, will they be incredibly competitive this year? I think so. Will they be a good team this year? Maybe, maybe not. I think it's more of this is more of a culture setting year than anything. And this is a great start to that. The Raiders, on the other hand, I really am. I don't understand the process by Antonio Pierce.
no,
Going when you keep an interim coach as your that kind of cult kind of re-energizes the team, sets a new identity towards the end of the year, like you did last year. You're doing so under the idea that you're going to be this CEO type, motivator type
no.
that goes for it and isn't conservative. That decision, what was 6 minutes left in the fourth, on the Chargers 40, 4th and 1, down a touchdown, punting the ball is a fireable offense, in my opinion. Obviously, they're not going to, but there's no way you punt that ball with what he's trying to build and how he's trying to build this Raider team to be the Raider teams of old, at least in the kind of mentality they have. You do not punt that ball. You try to pick up that 1 yard. If it's 4th and 7, 4th and 8, you're 50, fine. Dude, I don't understand because look, it's too long for a field goal, but it's in that middle ground where you cannot punt that ball because let's say it's a touchback, it's a what, 15 net gain yardage wise. You go for that. You go for that all the time to try to take the lead in the game. They lost the game there because the Chargers go down the field and score a touchdown. That's the game. I really don't like that decision. From a roster standpoint, from just a performance standpoint, Minshew looked fine. You know, he is just looking to be fine. I don't think um, there's not much to kind of look for with him. He is, I think, probably like uh, one of the 32 best quarterbacks in the league, probably like 32, 30, 1. But it's clear to me in the quarterback position that it's kind of just a transition year, and then they're looking to get someone in the draft. Bowers looked good, which as a Georgia fan, that makes me happy because both my both Georgia players looked really strong. Both really integral parts of that national championship back-to-back team under Kirby Smart. Uh, I think the Raiders ultimately, I really walk away disappointed with them just because of that decision from Antonio Pierce. That really was confusing to me. But from a Chargers perspective, especially Dobbins running for 135 on 10 carries, that if you can get J.K. Dobbins looking like his old college self, and maybe Jim Harbaugh's the type of guy to do that, then you have something there, right? Having a cost controlled running back is really important in the NFL, and if they can unlock J.K. Dobbins, that's really important. So overall, good Chargers, really down on the Raiders after this week.
Yeah, you could tell the difference in the in leadership is obviously there.
Hmm.
You see the viral of Jim Harbaugh like popping up her where he's gave him a hug and he was like you know hitting his shoulder pads, really getting him fired up. And then you fast forward last year with Red Staley, and the dude was doing like yoga on the field before the game. So big difference there.
Right.
That they clearly look re-energized. That defense, which always had the talent, they were just led just horribly, just very poorly. It was managed so poorly. Now you bring in a guy in Harbaugh who's much more tough-minded guy. He brings his own guy from Michigan, Jesse Minter, to run the defense,
Hmm.
and it's night and day. Like you say, all those guys they have on the inside who seem like they weren't very good. all of a sudden they look completely re-energized. That defense look really good. And yeah, the Raiders. That I think it's going to be a long year. Normally when you give an interim coach a full time job, it's because you're not hiring him full time because you think he's like going to be your head coach for the next 5 years. You're hiring him because he deserves the opportunity to prove whether or not he is. So that's the stage that they're at with Antonio Pierce. I mean, a lot of times when a guy gets promoted, he's a coordinator or a special teams coach or some sort of assistant coach. For the most part, the reason he's only like a position coach or an assistant coach and is not a head coach is they're probably a really good motivator, but they may not be the best X's and O's guy. So I think Pierce is a very good motivator. He obviously was a linebacker in the league for a while, had some success. He won a Super Bowl with the New York Giants as a player. He seems like a really good guy. He obviously completely re-energized the Raiders last year after just horribleness and just depressioning of Josh McDaniels. But do I think he's like a legit X's and O's guy? No, I do not by any means. I never did. Do I think he was the right move to keep him? I do. But if things don't go well and you think, all right, this guy just isn't, an NFL head coach, okay, fine, make a change. But yeah, I don't know if he's a good NFL head coach. That remains to be seen. But yeah, they didn't look great. I mean, their starting quarterback is Gardner Minshew. He's not a starter in this league. The roster has a lot of holes on it. It might be a long year for them. But yeah, so be a long year for them. And then moving on, let's go to Broncos and Seahawks. Seattle wins 26-20, first game of Bo Nix's career.
We see this a lot with rookies struggling right out of the gates, right? This is not the performance you want to see out of Bo Nix. But like I said in the podcast last week, it's a really hard ask to go down to Seattle and one of the toughest places to play in the league. Not to mention, not to, yeah, not to mention, I mean, he already couldn't win in Seattle to begin with last year. He struggled going to Husky Stadium and beating Washington, so it's not like this was totally.
When he played there, yeah,
It's not like this is totally
Yeah,
unforeseen.
Seattle's not the best spot for like.
No, I don't think he likes that place.
No, he doesn't love Seattle.
But yeah, I mean, I'm really not in on Sean Payton. I really am not. Like, there's nothing that really excites me about him. You know, if this was like 4 or 5 years ago, I would have been in. But this is a Sean Payton that I don't know. Maybe he's lost his fastball a little bit. This is not a complete team, so I gotta give him some credit or give him some time here. This is Bo Nix week one. This is an offense that's still growing. This is a defense that looked pretty decent, and I think gave them chances to win the game. But uh, you didn't want to see your rookie quarterback play like this, but I wouldn't say it's ultimately surprising. I mean, regardless of these two interceptions from Bo Nix, they only lost by 6. I mean, they still had a chance to win that game. Geno Smith struggled, only throwing for 170. Kenneth Walker had a really good game, which is really interesting. Because I think as much as like the Metcalf and Lockett combination is something you really like look after in JSN, I think the Seahawks' success is predicated on getting the running game going. And now with Mike McDonald coming from Baltimore to Seattle, I feel like they kind of have that defensive identity that you need. He's an excellent defensive coach, and you already kind of saw how successful his defense could be against a rookie quarterback week one. So for me, takeaways from this game, Bo Nix struggles, not entirely surprised, and Seattle looking pretty decent for, their first game under a new head coach.
Yeah, look, Bo didn't look great. He obviously that one pick was very bad. If you watch back the replay, one of the announcers, as soon as he let it go, goes, "Oh no!" But when the announcer says, "Oh no," as he let it go, you know that's for trouble. But yeah,
Yeah.
he didn't look he didn't look great. Towards the end, I thought I was like, all right, he kept them in it. He brought them back after they were kind of dominant throughout the end of the game, but he's not in a great situation. Peyton hasn't shown the ability to turn that team around. I don't have much confidence in him. I've never been a huge fan of him. Anyways, when he hasn't had Drew Brees, there's nothing that he's really accomplished without the guy, to be honest. Even in New Orleans or in Denver. So yeah, I've never been a fan of him. Just the roster isn't that good. They're gonna have a long year, Denver. And see, like you said, they've always been a team that that runs the football. That when they were even when they had Russell Wilson, that was kind of like the main reason that they were winning the Super Bowl and we're in the Super Bowl. We're going on deep playoff runs. And McDonald, that's why I think it was a good hire. He's honestly his style of play isn't that far off from Pete Carroll, but he's just a more I guess more modern version of Pete Carroll, which is kind of to me exactly what they needed. And he comes from John Harbaugh, who plays like a very hit you in the mouth style of football. We're going to run, take a throw, we're going to play great defense, and there's nothing you're going to do about it. We're going to be competitive. And to me, they have the guys to do that. I think Kenneth Walker is really good. I like Zach Charbonnet. They have some pieces on defense. They do a little bit of work there, but they have the ability to do that and be a very good team and make the playoffs. And they got a win in week one. Granted, they almost blew a touchdown lead in the fourth quarter against a bad Denver Broncos team, starting a rookie quarterback. But they pick up a win. But for Denver, yeah, that's just a rough situation. Like for Bo Nix, so hopefully he gets better over time. But yeah, Seattle's going to have to. I hope they do lean into the run because that's something they're going to do, and I think they will. Where enough that they obviously still going to execute. So we'll see what that happens as the season goes on. But they're going to have to lean into the run if they want to win games this year. All right, so the next game we're going to talk about is Browns versus Cowboys. Dallas pulls it out 33-17. Sean Watson, man. Yikes. Yikes.
Yeah,
Yikes.
yeah, we need to talk about him for a second. This guy is getting paid what in the top 5 quarterbacks in the league annually, and he's playing as if he is a mid to low tier backup. He has accuracy issues, play extension issues. That play extension is not there anymore. That pocket presence is not there anymore. He cannot. I mean, he literally is can't hit the side of a barn right now. He's missing open receivers, missing open guys. I really am confused about it because in 2020, like we talked about last podcast, this guy's a consensus top 5 quarterback with Mahomes, Rodgers, Brady, and emerging Allen that year. Maybe even top 3 if you want to go that far. And I don't know if it was the legal situation that kind of got him um in a different headspace. I don't know if it was the year off that did it or maybe the combination of the two. But he's not, old. He should be theoretically in his prime, and we're getting a Deshaun Watson that I would have thought is a 42-year-old Deshaun Watson. This guy, it's insane to me how quickly he has lost his ability to play football. But from a personal standpoint, I'm not that upset. I honestly don't think he should be playing in the NFL, period. I'm only upset for Browns fans that, again, like you have such a talented team and you have a quarterback that can't do anything. I mean, I'm dead serious. Like this team would be a better team with Jameis Winston right now. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and that's kind of concerning considering Jameis is kind of all or nothing type of guy. But this team would be way better. I mean, if you think about it, Jameis Winston and Joe Flacco essentially are the same player. Just Jameis Winston is younger, right? Where it's like, all right, I might throw for 30 touchdowns, but I'm going to throw for like 25 picks. But honestly, they might need that. I think with the defense, how good that defense is for the Browns, if the offense can just give them something, that's probably all you need to at least be a playoff team. I mean, they did that last year. So yeah, from a Browns perspective, I think honestly, the more you try to dig out of this hole, it's gonna get worse, right? It's so hard to stomach that contract, right? You've set your team back. I mean, how many years of dead money they're gonna have to eat? What, at least 2 more? It's tough, right? But you dug yourself a hole, you probably should stop digging, right? That's the first rule. And if you
Yeah.
continue to play Deshaun Watson at the rate he's currently playing, not to mention, again, another lawsuit's filed on him. We don't really know if that's going to impact his availability to play. It doesn't seem like it, honestly. I mean, if it would have by now, it would have. So I don't. If it was going to, it would have by now. So it's really sad, honestly, from the Browns' perspective and for their fans. But as someone who is rooting for Sean Watson's downfall, I'm not really all that sad about him. From a Cowboys perspective, honestly, there's really nothing to take away. I know that might sound a little bit harsh, but we've seen this story before with the Cowboys, right? They're a great regular season
Oh yeah.
team. They'll have some great portfolio wins, and then they get to the playoffs, right? This team is purely judged based on their playoff performance. I will say, Dak looked good. Again, we've seen this before with him last year. He was an MVP candidate, and then he plays in the playoffs and he does not have his best game. Defense looked great. Again, Deshaun Watson tax. This defense is going to look good, but again, when you're playing Deshaun Watson, you're probably going to look a lot better. And then their weapons look good. Zeke looks, honestly, it's really weird to see Zeke back in a Cowboy jersey, but he looked like he had a burst again, which is confusing to me because it kind of feels like that's defying the kind of sort of, you know, the hill that running backs hit. He did have a good year last year, an underratedly good last year with the Patriots. So honestly, I think he's a much better option right now than like a Rico Dowdle is, and he's a different and it kind of gives you versatility in the running back room. You have Zeke, the power guy, Deuce Vaughn, kind of receiving back, scat back. And then Rico Dowdle's kind of that elusive scat back. That kind of gives you that three combination of those two as a decent backfield. So yeah, I mean from the Cowboys perspective, really nothing to take away. A good win against a good team with a bad quarterback.
Yeah, it's a shame because they have a good roster. Jerome Ford, they're putting it back. You'll have Chubb back eventually. You have some good weapons: Mark Cooper, Jerry Judy, David Njoku. Our defense is really freaking good, led by Miles Garrett. But just Deshaun Watson, he's just horrible. And like you said, on
Yeah.
top of him just being just a horrible person, the guy should not be in the league. If I'm the NFL, put him on the exempt list. Don't
Mhm.
let him play for now. Investigate, and if anything is of it, just if an ounce of it is true, the guy should not be in league. You suspended him for 11 games the first time. The next at this point, he's had 30 different allegations. He needs to go. He needs to go. Also on the field, he is just freaking horrible. He's in the same category as Bryce Young and freaking Daniel Jones at this point. Like he's just horrible. And like you said, it's not like the guy, all right, sometimes guys, fall off. Tom Brady's the greatest of all time. At his age, 45 years, he wasn't very good. Ben Roethlisberger's last year, he wasn't very good. Philip Rivers was the same at the very end. Peyton Manning's last year, he wasn't very good. He was drafted the same year as Patrick Mahomes, and Mahomes, I think, is 28, so he's probably around the same age as Mahomes. He's not even 30 years old. Like, it's not like he's been playing for 15 years. He's been playing for like 7 or 8. Like,
Right,
it's
yeah.
absolutely insane. I get it. But, the legal stuff, which is self induced. So that's totally even an excuse. Not playing for a year and a half, but that's all gone. He's got his feet wet. Last year and the end of the year before. He's gotten used to playing for the Browns. He's got himself healthy. I know he was injured a lot last year. There's no more excuses. You have more than good enough roster. Even if he's like a mediocre, even if he's like Kirk Cousins, that's more than enough to get this team to the playoffs. And he can't even do that. The guy is just horrible. And the fact that getting rid of Baker and him going on to be a pretty good quarterback for a lot less money. I think Baker makes like 30 million a year compared to
Yeah, yeah, right
Watson,
about
who makes like on average 46.
double,
I
right?
think
Yeah.
it's the most Cleveland Browns thing I've ever
Ugh,
seen.
yeah.
It's just that organization is just putrid and it's just horrible.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a very Cleveland Browns thing to finally have a good roster. I mean, they've had a good roster for years now. I mean, ever since 2020, really. I mean, ever since Stefanski's got there, this team's been competitive, this team's been well assembled, and it's just been a quarterback away. And funny enough, you probably did have your quarterback, and then he got hurt. You played through the injury and you let him go. You signed Sean Watson, which look, legal situation aside if you just look at it in a vacuum in terms of what you expected Deshaun Watson to be, I understand the process. Now, I wouldn't have gone for Deshaun Watson given the situation that happened prior.
Not giving up what you get it up either.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention he didn't play for a year, so that always complicates things. But I get the process. But man, that trade really sets that team back for I mean, who knows? I mean, this team with a competent quarterback could literally be a division winner in a division that's
Absolutely.
incredibly tough. You have a Bengals team that's a defend, a recent AFC champion, a Ravens team that went to the AFC Championship game last year, a Steelers team that somehow always got to 9-8, and then you're the Browns, and you're coming off a playoff appearance last year with a 40-something-year-old Joe Flacco. So like this team has the capacity to win the division, but it's all predicated on just having anything from the quarterback room. And right now, you don't get that with Deshaun Watson. You're not going to get that with Deshaun Watson. I say just play Jameis.
At this point, yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I saw something on I forget if it was on social media or somebody wrote something about it. I think if he gets put on the exempt list, there's some way they can get out of it.
Hmm.
And so if I'm the Browns, I am calling the league like, oh yeah, I think you're not on the exempt list. This is kind of concerning. Jackie's on
Yeah.
the list. I am going through every little language in this contract and get out of that because holy hell, you are
Yeah.
screwed. There is
If
no
they can
way
if
out.
they can get out of that contract, I mean that would be a godsend. Regardless of, you lost the picks, you lost the draft capital.
You
You're not
still
getting that back.
you basically your window you had a you had a window and you basically closed before it even started. Like
It
even if you get out of it, it's going to be a couple of years, but at this point they're looking at they're going to be locked down for 5 years because of the dead money.
and look at the Texans, like just how
Yeah,
much better they've came out of it. I mean, they had a really terrible season the year before they got CJ Stroud, but that was kind of expected. So man, just oof. It sucks being a Cleveland Browns fan. It does. It must be.
it's bad. It's bad. Next game is Commanders and the Buccaneers. Bucks win 37-20, taking care of business in what was Jaden Daniels' first career game with the Washington Commanders.
Speaking of Baker Mayfield,
Yeah,
4 touchdowns, nearly 300 yards. This is his team now, right? This is kind of him planting his flag, literally, I guess, in some instances in college career. But uh, uh, this is him showing that this is his team, right? He gets his contract extension. He's found a home in Tampa Bay, and I think this team, maybe the flashy pick to win the division is the Falcons, right? I think at their best, I think the Falcons um are a better team, maybe in theory, I guess. Yeah, in theory, I would imagine they are. However, the Bucks are the reigning NFC South champs. They are a team that has a lot of continuity on both sides of the ball, and it's a team that has it's a Baker, Mike Evans led team with a good defense and with intriguing pieces too, considering you have rookie Jalen McMillan scoring for the Bucks. The interesting third round pick out of Washington. We all know how good he was with Polkin and Dunze. Um, this is a really interestingly constructed offense. They struggled to run the ball last year. However, if Baker's playing like this, they're gonna be a good offense. And for the Washington Commanders, we know their defense isn't all that great. Dan Quinn rather uh isn't gonna fix that defense overnight. There's a lack of talent um there, and I didn't expect their defense to come out of the gate strong. I don't really love the Dan Quinn pick. Like I think he's earned the opportunity to coach, get another head coaching opportunity. However, I wasn't in love with the pick. I feel like there's other, like if they could have gotten after Mike McDonald, that would have been kind of the better option,
well,
going with
yeah.
a younger
If you're
defensive
looking for
mind.
like a younger defensive mind, you might as well go after Mike. You might as well
Yeah,
Mike McDonald level.
right.
Take a shot
Um,
when you kind of already
but
know it.
yeah, but I think the Commanders are in total just evaluation mode this season for
Yeah,
Jaden Daniels. That's pretty much it. He looked okay, nothing crazy. I mean, running for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground, but 16 carries, you really don't want to see your quarterback running that much. I think you're going to see similar play style to like how a young Allen or a young Lamar in the sense of, no, I'm not saying he's going to be those two
yeah.
types of players, but in the sense of the passing isn't there yet, right? The ability to read a defense is not there yet because the game's kind of moving too fast. And the great equalizer for a young player is to use your legs, right? To extend plays, to be a threat in the running game. Similar to kind of maybe how um, the Bears are doing with their defense. I think a great way for the Commanders to kind of shelter Jaden Daniels a little bit more is to kind of lean into that running element of his game. And I think ultimately this game is a game where team that's favored does what they're expected, looks good, and the team that's not with a rookie quarterback kind of just comes out of it knowing what you knew going into it. You don't have a great defense right away, and you have an intriguing rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels that needs some development.
Yeah, look, I think that Daniel is an incredible talent. The offensive line is really scary. Daniels, he really needs a solid line to protect him. He's very brittle. I don't know why. It's been this way since LSU, even when he was at Arizona State, and we saw it again in his first game. Whenever he gets hit, he goes flying. It's almost like it's almost like he's in a cartoon. It's really weird. Like he looks like he weighs like 140 pounds. Like it's crazy how small that guy is. But he's got talent out of his way. He won the Heisman last year for a reason. That line's really scary. I have a hard time seeing him getting through the year unscathed, to be honest. I find it hard to believe. But Tampa played really well. Baker pulled out. That Washington defense is not very good. That secondary is really, really bad. I think it's going to be a long year for Washington. Thankfully, Daniels didn't really make too many horrible mistakes, although he was a bit erratic. It was cool to see him, even at the end of the game when the game was out of reach, he was still trying to play make and was still trying to get his team back in the game. But so overall, I think that there were some good signs from Jane Daniels, which is all like you said, all you're really looking for. There is not much to look forward to as a Commanders fan. There hasn't been in a very long time. But that's just a really bad organization. But yeah, but right now the Bucks seem like it's their division to lose, and yeah, Washington, you know, I guess Daniels show some flash. That's really all you got out of that one. And to finish off, then we got two games left. Sunday Night Football, Lions, Rams. Lions win 26-20 in overtime. They ran the ball down the Rams' throat in overtime to pick up the win.
Yeah, this is a game that really lived up to the hype. This was a game, obviously, just like Chiefs Ravens. Both NBC games were playoff rematches.
Hmm.
This kind of game is annoying considering the overtime rules aren't the playoff rules. It's just for the regular season. So
Yeah.
both teams can't touch the ball. I really wish the Rams could have gotten a response, but kind of just large takeaways from the Rams perspective. The biggest one is obviously the injury to Puka Nacua. He is going to at least miss 4 games. He's getting put on the IR. And it looks like all initial signs are he will miss a little bit more than 4 weeks, which is very concerning. However, what's the great equalizer? That's Cooper Kupp, right? People saying Cooper Kupp's kind of finished, he's washed. Maybe not to that degree, but he was slowing down. And Puka was the number 1 target or the number 1 receiver last year. Cooper Kupp, 21 targets, 14 receptions, 110, and a touchdown. Suffice to say that it's more of maybe just Puka eating into his share than anything else.
Yeah.
Although the concern for me is that Matt Stafford, as well as he played, I mean, he played like an MVP candidate last night, or sorry, on Sunday. He played great, but the only issue is, again, can he stay upright? Can he stay healthy? That's always been a question for him. Throwing it 49 times in a game also is very concerning. I mean, you can't really sustain an offense like that and keep your quarterback upright. I really think, Kyron Williams looked great last year. Today, Sunday, 18 carries, 50 yards and a touchdown, only averaging less than 3 yards a carry. So he wasn't really able to get it going again, though granted, it was a really tough Lions defense that you were going up against. For the Lions perspective, Goff doesn't have his best game. 18 for 28, 217, a touchdown and a pick. I do think though the one big thing from the Lions' perspective is Jameson Williams. We talked about him in the
Oh yeah,
podcast pregame.
last game.
Five receptions, 121 and a touchdown. Weirdly enough, was the number one option in this game. Amon-Ra only 6 targets, 3 receptions, 13 yards. You'd
Yeah.
imagine there's a course correction for that, but look, if this team can have right now, it's very Amon-Ra and Laporta centric in the passing game. If you can open up another option with a deep threat like Jameson Williams, and we saw what he was able to do at Alabama and how electric he can be, this offense has the capacity to be even better. So from a Lions perspective, it's a good win against a good team. It's always funny to see Matt Stafford come back to Detroit, but he's not wearing a Lions uniform. Uh, but there's still things to clean up for I think both teams.
Yeah, going back to Stafford, look, Stafford's a great quarterback. He obviously was he was stuck in Detroit for a long time. He's one of the toughest quarterbacks I've seen it to ever play. You've seen him, play through like broken bones. He's 36 or 37 years old. He can't play injured anymore. If you protect him and you have a legit running game and he doesn't throw the ball 4 times every week, he could still be one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and the Rams would still be a contender, absolutely. But he can out throw the ball 4 to 9 times a game every game anymore. If this was 2018, maybe, but it's
Mhm.
2020. He just
Right.
can't do it anymore. He's going to hurt himself, and
Mhm.
it's a little worrisome, especially when you have a really good running attack. Kyron Williams is a great player. You draft Blake Corum, who I thought would get a lot more work. I don't think he played much, or if at all. So I don't know why. And yes, they did lose the game, but so they had obviously you had to get that game to overtime. So you maybe had to pass a little more time, but still, you lost. But you lost by 6 points in overtime. It was like you were down by 30 at one point. You had to throw the ball just to stay in the game. It was a close game pretty much the whole time. They it's a game that they would have been able to run the ball. I get the Lions are very tough against the run, and their secondary in the past has struggled. Although I do think it's a lot better this year, but still, new look, first game. I'm not sure if it'll look completely as reborn as it could be in week one, especially when you have a rookie starting and Terry and Arnold. But yeah, I don't know why he threw the ball almost 50 times. That's something that they can't do every week. They're gonna have to get the run game going, and they have a good run game, especially with Puka Nacua now out for a while now. They're gonna, have to run the ball a little bit more. In Detroit, yeah, they're gonna obviously Amon-Ra was first team all pro last year. You give him $120 million. He's got to have more than the 6 targets. That's not good enough. Thankfully, they ran the ball very well. It was good to see Jameson Williams look healthy and look good. He had probably the best game of his career. He's always had a talent. He's had a lot of injuries and other stuff kind of going on. Yeah, he had the gambling thing, obviously. But yeah, there's no reason why the Lions can't be in the Super Bowl this year. I'll make a bunch of us on the podcast, including myself, have them in the Super Bowl. There's no reason why they shouldn't be. So yeah, so I think both teams, like you said, both teams that I think are very good, especially the Lions. But both teams have some kinks to work out. And
Right.
last
Yeah.
but not
Sure.
least, before we talk about the Monday night game, actually no, we're at the Monday night game. Last but not before we pick our game for the game tonight, 49ers Jets. 49ers winning 32-19 over the Jets.
Yeah. So a lot of talk about how the Jets kind of came out flat, and they were clearly the inferior team today on Monday. However, I think there are, if you are a Jets fan, there are some things to kind of take away that can give you some hope. I mean, look, going to San Francisco on the road and making a few mistakes, that's probably gonna cost you the game. San Francisco's, a top two, top three team in the league. It's a very hard ask for a Jets Aaron Rodgers led team to kind of walk into San Francisco and win. I don't think many people expected that to happen. I did expect it to be a little bit more competitive, but from a Jets standpoint, the offense looked a lot better, which I mean, going from Zach Wilson to whatever Aaron Rodgers is now, I mean, when you look at a stat line, it really doesn't look that impressive. 13 for 21, 167, and a touchdown and a pick. I mean, that's not great, obviously. I do think there's a little bit of a misconception with that. I don't think it was as bad as it looked. I think his fastball was still there. I mean, he was zipping some of those throws. There's a lot of velocity on those throws. And look, it's week one. He's coming back from an Achilles injury, so I think Aaron Rodgers in the long term will give them at least a baseline level of quarterback play to where this team can be competitive and have a chance for the playoffs. However, I don't I still need more from their defense. I understand, again, San Francisco's when they're on, it's really hard for anyone to stop them. And I don't think this defense is going to crater to a below average unit when they've been a top five defense for the last 2 years. I don't think they're just going to lose the ability to play defense under Robert Saleh. However, they need more, right? Obviously, if the team's going to be successful, they can't be playing that way. San Francisco, no CMC, no problem. Jordan Mason ran incredibly hard, incredibly well. I mean, 28 carries, 147, a touchdown's insane. He had a little bit of a the 49ers might be in some trouble considering the interview at the end of the game. Jordan Mason, no fault of his own, just reveals he was going to play
Yeah,
Friday when, it's not what the injury report said.
yeah.
So there might be in trouble for that, but it really does just show that when the 49ers are on schedule and they can run what they want to run, that offensive line, which right now, when many people look at it, it's like Trent Williams is incredible, first ballot Hall of Famer, but then they look at everything else, it's like, wow, that's a really bad offensive line. The one good thing about those four other guys and Trent Williams, obviously, is they are good run blockers. Trent Williams being the run blocker. They have a guy like Juszczyk who's a really good run blocker. Their wide receivers get involved in run blocking. And the way the Shanahan system works is it's predicated on, running the ball effectively and then working through play action and motion. And when they're on schedule, they're a really good team, and it's really hard to stop them with all the weapons they have. They have multiple options to go to. Jennings, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, etc. But once you get the 49ers in a drop back passing game, that's kind of where, again, they get off schedule and they have to kind of pivot to pass blocking on those third and longs, which is not the strength of that offensive line. So if the 49ers can get into schedule, you're going to get games like this. So 49ers look great. Uh, Jets, look, they're going to have a couple of games here coming up that are favorable. I think they will be 2-1, 3-1 heading into week 4. So as much as people are dogging on them, I do think that there's brighter days ahead for them.
Yeah, look, I didn't pick them to win the game. I don't think, like I said, I don't think a lot of people did.
Mhm.
I mean, I waited 2 years for Aaron Rodgers and I got that. That's not ideal. I mean, I've never had a lot of confidence in Robert Saleh, and I'm even less confident as ever. Same thing with Nathaniel Hackett.
Mhm.
The run defense just got absolutely gutted. That's just not acceptable. I get it, they Christian McCaffrey. All right, the guy's the best in the league. That's one thing. But Jordan Mason, who I do think is a good player. When he's gotten touches over the last year or two, I think he's looked good. He obviously hasn't gotten a lot of touches because of how low he is on the depth chart. This year with McCaffrey out, the first game probably won't play this week either. And Elijah Mitchell was placed on the IR before the year even started, so he gets kind of shot up the depth chart. He went out there and played really well. But so the guy's wasn't he knew he was going to start. 72 hours before the game. That's just not good enough. The offense, I think, and they made a lot of mistakes. Gary Wilson had a couple of bad drops. And Lazaro did have 2 touchdowns. He had a bad drop on the first drive. The calls of 3 now. I think Rodgers, although like the one pick he had wasn't on him. That was a bad drop on Gary Wilson to kind of flex into the hands of the 49ers defender. A couple of throws he could have had back. A couple of times he was kind of he was pressured and he just kind of threw it into the ground. I'm sure if he had a little more time, he may have been able to do something. Overall, the line looked better than I thought. His leg is in one piece, which is a good sign. Uh, I was really the first 4 plays. I was like, oh, and they didn't actually run like a fourth pass play for like the third drive because they went 3 and out. Then the Brees Hall fumble, and again that's something else. You're playing the 49ers. You can't you go down 3-0. You can't just first
Mhm.
play of the next series just give the ball away. Deep in your own territory. 2 hands on the football. That's another bad mistake. Just so many mistakes. When you're playing with the 49ers, you can't have drop passes and turnovers
Mhm.
and expect to win the game. So,
Right, yeah.
like you said, their next 4 games are winnable games. They get Tennessee this week. They get New England. They have Minnesota coming up. So again, there is a universe where they're 4-1 heading into a tough game against the Bills in Week 6. There is a universe where that is a possibility. And in
Hmm.
fact, that's something they should shoot for because they're in a very tough AFC conference, they're in a tough AFC East division. The games against those below 500 teams are games that you need to win because those games against the better teams like the Bills are going to be tough. So
Right.
uh, they're to me they got to win at least three of those four. But it was not a great start by any means. That being said, I'll say if they lose to Tennessee, that's when you smash the alarm. By smash, I mean literally shatter into a million pieces.
Mhm.
But if they win and all said look absolutely horrible, as they win and they look somewhat decent, it's like all right, you're 1-1, going into a game against the New England Patriots, who aren't a good
Mhm.
football team. Um, that's not the worst spot in the world to be in. So you'll see what
Right.
happens. The only reason I'm being as down as I am as Jeff ends is because I've seen this movie before. I've seen this end very poorly time and time again.
Mhm. Right. Yeah.
But yeah, to close out, Nick, your Bills play the Miami Dolphins tonight.
Mhm.
Who do you got in that game?
Yeah, so these games are always really funny because these are two fan bases that very much don't like each other. These are
Yep.
two teams that don't very much like each other. Um, it's interesting, the dynamic, because in Miami, Bills fans travel a lot, so you're gonna be here. I mean, we saw that in the division decider, I guess, the AFC East championship match, if you want to call it, last year, where there was like 40% Bills fans. Like, so they travel pretty well, and that's gonna be something to look out for in terms of um home field advantage and how much that really matters. What does really matter? Actually, now thinking about it, the one thing that is really important about this game is that it's a night game. Because if this was a Sunday morning or afternoon game, the heat becomes a big factor. Because it's late at night, I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue. Not to the effect of 2 years ago when we had that like what 100 and like degree weather game, and you had people cramping left and right for the Bills and Dolphins respectively. So uh, these games come down to two things. Can the Bills defense contain the big plays from the Dolphins, and can the Dolphins stop Josh Allen at all? And can Josh Allen stop Josh Allen? If Josh Allen stops Josh Allen, then there might be a window where the Dolphins win this game. However, if Josh Allen plays the way he does just against the Dolphins, I do think the Bills are going to win. For me, this game it seems it's really hard to read because the Dolphins didn't look as good as they could be. The Bills didn't look as good as they could be. I think no Taron Johnson's really important, although Cam Lewis stepped up and played pretty admirably in the second half at nickel. I think the secondary for the Bills matches up pretty well against the Dolphins defense, at least their corners, rather. Their safeties, Rapp and Hamlin, were okay. They weren't really that great against Arizona, but again, they weren't tested too much. They played all snaps available, so I'm expecting that to be the safety duo. I think if the Bills' defensive line can look the way they did against Arizona with Russo and Miller and Ed Oliver, um, and if the Dolphins can't run the ball, I do think that kind of gives the edge to the Bills. If the Dolphins find success running the ball like they did early in the first half of the game in Week 18 last year, and that becomes something the Bills have to look after, I do think the defense is going to struggle to contain the Miami offense, in which case it would be Josh Allen having to score like 35 points to win this game, which he couldn't do. Uh, ultimately, might be a homer pick, but I do think the Bills are going to edge it just because we've had a really great track record against the Dolphins. I mean, Allen is 8-1, 8-2 against the Dolphins. He's 6-0 in Thursday night games, which means he's probably going to lose, and I jinx my team. But I do think I'm going to give the edge to the Bills really slightly, but give credit where credit's due. I can totally see a path for the Dolphins to win this game.
Yeah, I am going to take the Bills, but the Dolphins out there are going to have either running backs. I think Raheem Mostert has already been rolled out. A-Chain, I don't think he's going to play. You remember, this is week 2. It's a short week. They won in week 1. I don't think it's worth just risking the health of some of your top playmakers. So if they're smart, the Dolphins, their medical staff has had some issues in the past. Obviously, they haven't always made the smartest of decisions. likely game, and then that training staff they haven't handled injuries too well in the past, but hopefully I think they're better off honestly rolling out them and they train even if it costs them the game. You'll get the Bills later on in the year, possibly when you're at a more full strength, which will give them a better shot. And if you're 1-1, obviously you're still in a fine spot. So I think we will see Jalen Wright, be their top back probably in this game. He's a what a third or a fourth round rookie, thrown in there week 2. That's not super ideal. I mean that offense is kind of plug and play. It's also very talented, but this is the kind of game the Dolphins will win, and then when they play the Bills later in the season, they'll lose 26-9. The known the Dolphins, but I think the Bills win this game. But the Dolphins just aren't at full strength, and you know the Bills and their secondary. Miami, I'm not really sold on. I was a little surprised they gave Ramsey the contract he did. He's getting a little bit older. Also, Xavier Howard isn't there anymore. He was kind of you know limping his way out anyway. So I think the Bills sneak by.
Also, it's the Poyer reunion for
Yeah. So,
Buffalo. That'll be interesting to see what reception he gets. But
yeah.
yeah, definitely wasn't totally sold on the Miami secondary against the Jaguars. I mean, that first half they got absolutely destroyed.
Yeah.
They reined it back in the second half, but I also feel like that was kind of just the Jaguars' inability to close games. But yeah, it's certainly going to be close. I can't see a blowout either way. So yeah, I think it should be a good game.
Absolutely. That's all I got for you guys today, Nick. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah,
Love
of
to have to do
course.
this again. Of course, you've done this twice now since you since you joined Sacred Heart and you just joined the program. So let's keep doing this.
Of
Until
course.
next time. So long. Have a great day.